young man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right, we are live. Welcome back. I know I had a 2-week hiatus here, but I am back from being on the road. I'm a little more disorganized than normal just because that's how these things work. And we're going to be talking about gratitude. Jesse is supposed to be here, but he's not here yet. I don't know what that means. Let's hope Jesse shows up soon. He's the one that's got all the notes on gratitude at the moment. But it is great to see everybody. I'm glad to be back in the pirate captain chair, captaining the live navigation ship once again, and talking about gratitude. I've got my Sampel large bottle. I've got my tea from Table Rock Tea. We get some marathon tea because it's always a marathon when we do these things. Jesse's in the chat. I don't know why he's not in the stream. I have no idea. I sent him the link. He should have it. What are you doing, Jesse? Send it to you in Discord. I send it to you on Twitter. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, so the topic is going to be gratitude. Oh, and I got potato chips because who doesn't like potato chips? And they're sea salt and vinegar potato chips. Very important for navigating live patterns because we're on the sea. And as Anselman says, I must go down to the sea again, to the lonely sea and the sky. Indeed. Indeed. And there's Jesse. And Jesse is here to help us navigate gratitude. And Jesse is going to do as much of the monologue as he feels comfortable with, and I'm going to jump in wherever he allows me to do so.
Have we started yet?
We are live. We are ready to go. I am here waiting for you. Hanselman had a beer. Hanselman had a beer, so he's getting his coffee brewed though. So it's all good.
How are we, Mark? Let me get this microphone. So
okay. Well, we can take our time thinking about gratitude. We talked about discernment, judgment, and action, right? We've talked about boundaries. We've talked about telos. We've talked about a bunch of things. And gratitude's one I've been reticent to conquer. So I'm glad you want to steer the ship for this one. These are rocky waters indeed.
We'll try. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for allowing me to come on and speak about gratitude. I'm grateful for the experience, if you pardon the pun. Okay. Which note? I should have it here.
You don't have your notes ready? I thought we'd be
I
like
do have my
in the
notes ready.
studio, tuning all the
Oh, come
sound,
on.
and then you jumped
If
in
you're
late.
if you're a liberal once, you can never shake it. This is the thing. Once you're a liberal, you can never shake it. You're always late to things and stuffing around. Okay, so you want me just to read what we've got? Or I'm meant to
You
perform?
can-
I don't know. This is
You
great.
can do it however you
Pressure's on.
want, sir. Like it's your show to some extent here, so go right ahead and
Oh,
give
gosh,
it.
don't do
And
that.
yeah, you can do it.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll do my best Mark impersonation while we do this. I'm gonna make myself laugh if I do that though. Okay, so gratitude. The issue with gratitude is the opening to the idea of creation. Having been created in this world, we are bound to time, to a context, to a community, to the seasons. We need to find a way to be grateful. When we do this, it affords you a way to feel good, in right relationship, in alignment to the divine or to the logos or to you know what. Instead of being skeptical and cynical, we need to attend to that which we appreciate, to what we find true and are grateful for. Through proper judgment, discernment, action, you gain the outlook to appropriately see the potential that is before you. So we should stop there. We can maybe segment it up. How about that as a? How about that as a?
I like that. You're born into a
Bring it
particular. You're born into a
context.
particular time and place, right? Like, and
Yeah.
and so you should stop every once in a while in your progression forward through life, through the universe, through whatever, and appreciate the fact that you're here.
Yeah.
And you're still
You made it
here,
this far.
even though yesterday you were here. You're still here, right? And even though there are constraints on you, and maybe the constraints seem onerous or numerous or impossible somehow, you're still here.
Well, there's always reasons to despair, right? There's always
Right.
reasons to despair. You can get there's that Velcro tap-along to the metaphor where it's far easier to stick to things that are negative than they are positive. You also can map this out with brain chemistry, right? It takes a lot longer to receive dopamine urgence than it does negative stress hormones. So there's a lot of reasons to battle with what you think is reality. But gratefulness is a way to kind of mitigate that challenge of stress that right, because potential is just potential. Like you don't know what's going to happen next. I could say cheeseburger sandwich, and you'll be like, "What?" Because potential is always before you, right? You don't know I'm going to say that, and so you don't know the challenges that have come before you. But what you can do is, in some ways, stop, look, listen to where you are, and sort of orient yourself towards, I like to say the truth, the good, the beautiful. So we go on with the notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So potential. So potential potential phenomena is always before you, but how you see that, what attitude you are bringing to the patterns of life is important. How do you navigate the symbolic season of the life that you are in? It's not easy to be grateful because life does involve pain and suffering. It's easy to find reasons to be resentful. Resentfulness and cynicism are extremely toxic. You can make yourself drunk on your inner critic. It is easy to be selfish and bitter. Gratitude isn't about being happy, it's about being content. No matter how much you lose, having had something to lose is still a way to be grateful. How you interact with others, how you navigate the patterns of your own manifest behaviors is important. How you interact with the spirit of gratitude determines your attention towards everything else. Waking up and being grateful is important, but because it sees your intentional effect for the day. It sets your intentional effect for the day. Right, which is, the crazy Christians talk about praying in the morning. Other types of religions, other types of religious practices have sort of modes of behavior, modes of patterns, modes of interacting with the world that set up an orientation or a spirit or a logos for the, not just for the day, but for the particular seasons of life, or even for holy days, festival days, right? And so what modernism has done is kind of stripped us away of that context of the seasons of life, so much it's kind of flattened out the world. So we kind of just get the bare basics, would be what to say. You kind of get Easter. Easter's now about chocolate. It's not about fasting. You get Christmas. Christmas is about sacrificing for others. It's kind of about having a broader perspective, giving out. Now Christmas is about receiving in. So everything's kind of flattened and decontextualized. The contrast is being lost, you could say, which is the next thing we go to, which is prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer gives you the contrast. Anything you want to say?
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, the idea of this, flattening, this gratitude is really where you're pointing your attention. Because you can always point your attention at your inner critic and become that part of you, to the exclusion of the other parts of you, right? Because it's all about attention, right? And you become what you attend to, very much. It's a very big danger. And I was listening to Busy Day today. I've been out all day in meetings, driving all over the state, and actually driving to another state and having meetings. And I came late to the Paul Van der Klay live stream, which was unfortunate because I had asked a question of Paul and I wanted to hear his answer. And I'm very grateful that he allowed me to ask a pretty complicated question. And I was listening to a good portion of the live stream. I sort of missed the first part of the answer. I caught up on it just before the stream, actually. And at one point, I heard this question where somebody was asking, I don't remember the exact question, it was something like, if Mary hadn't anointed Jesus, would he still have resurrected? And it was like, that is Christian materialism, right? That is the clearest example of Christian materialism. And I was grateful that I heard that, because it's such a clear example of, well, are these the steps to follow to get this to happen? It's like, no. And had these steps not happened, would history have unfolded differently? It's like, no. It's like, because when your attention is set on the things or the process or the what actually happened, did this, right, then you're not pointed higher anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're not pointed higher, it's hard to be grateful, because to your earlier point, I mean, this world is full of suffering and things don't go your way, and you make predictions and they're wrong, and maybe a bunch of predictions are right and the most important ones are wrong, and you just can't, I mean, nothing goes well, over time, and like, because we all die, and it's like, like my dogs are dead. Like, I want my dogs back, but they're dead. Like, but I'm grateful for the time I had with them, right? Because that's part of re-enchanting the world, is not just looking at where you are now or looking at your suffering or identifying with your inner critic, because it's easy to critique. Boy, it's hard to build, but it's really easy to critique, right? And we're tuned to that evolutionarily in the same way we're tuned to negativity, because the negative stuff kills you. And so we're tuned evolutionarily to pay attention to negative signals. We want to pay attention to our inner critic. It's just that when we identify with the inner critic, now we have a problem, because we can't be grateful for all the things that aren't critiquable. It's a small number of things that are critiquable in any domain.
You don't want to engage in a critique that does not have a true telos, right? If you're just critiquing for the sake of critique or for the sake of self-glorification, right? What's the aim there, right? You're aiming back at yourself, and that's often why the sort of the critique space is often diminished themselves, and they often become bitter, because the telos of what they critique is usually pointed back at themselves, right? If you've painted a big target on yourself, of course, things are going to look, you're not going to have proper context or contrast, because all that attention is focused at you. And really, the way to be grateful is to focus outward from yourself and appreciate what you have, right? Like I appreciate this Van Gogh painting, right? I picked it up for $20 and it's sat with me ever since. I've got paintings and pictures and portraits, a whole bunch of things that I've kept with me for years, and they're kind of grounding in some ways of, oh, I remember when I got this from here and I got that from there. And that's not materialism, but that's appreciating the context in the moment. I can look back at that and go, that's a reminder of what that time was. And it's not a hindsight bias. It's a way of going, well, this is where I've come from. So that's another thing.
Grounding.
Grounding is a great way to say this. Yeah. Okay, so I'll keep going. Prayer gives contrast. It circumnavigates the egoic urge to glorify yourself. Humility and thankfulness renew your understanding of what is important. A grateful prayer has an intentionality, an orientation, a celebration, a remembrance, and prayer resonates the awareness of the potential. Gratitude leads to the restoration of the celebration of the higher ideal. Might say that again because it's a little bit, maybe you can work on the wording. Gratitude leads to the restoration of the right celebration that is highlighting the ideal, right? The divine, the logos. Gratitude increases your participation in the true, the good, the beautiful. Evil, however, is the lack of potential. It's the oppression of having no option, having no agency. Gratitude affords the contrast. Contrast is important. Gratitude affords agency. Hubris, pride, malice, depression, despair, disease, arrogance, greediness, wrath, impatience, you could keep going on, impotence, envy, self-aggrandizement, apathy. These patterns will manifest before you, arguably in you, but it's gratitude that leads you out of this negative thinking. This gets into the intellectual frames of the hermeneutics of suspicion. Here's a note. Suspicion is a type of judgment. We've been talking about this for the last few weeks. What is the justification for your suspicion? You cannot be grateful for the thing that you are questioning. Pause there.
Yeah. No, that's well said. I remember reading over the notes and thinking, this is a pretty good circumnavigation of this whole issue of gratitude, because you can't not pay attention to negative things, right? So you have to reset by paying attention to not just the positive things around you, but the positive things that are spiritually around you, right? Or ethereally around you, right? And that's right. It's the gratitude, not for the large Champel bottle that I can just go to the store and buy. They sell them all over the place, right? But gratitude for the fact that they sell them all over the place. And gratitude for the fact that there's an infrastructure that enables me to have this stuff from Italy. It's kind of amazing. And I can critique that, the store was out the other day, or I had to go to a different store and it's further away. But, by some force, mystical force, we have this amazing trade network that enables me to have this and drink it.
Well, trade, like reciprocity, leads towards humility, right? When you've got something to trade, right, you realize where you are in the world. Another thing is your humility or thankfulness yourself. It grounds you in the reality that are before you. Okay. Just to say, you are sustained by that which is above you. You are sustained through it, and you are in service to
See,
it.
your mic's a little crazy.
Oh, is it? It's not being all over the place?
Yeah, it changed for me.
Oh. Maybe. How's that?
Try again.
Get into that. No.
It's still soft and bassy.
Oh, it's soft. Okay, about that.
It's a little better.
Fix that. I'm grateful for the compressor that I have. Nice German compressor. How about that?
That's
good?
a little better, yeah.
All right. Okay. Speaking to it. Thankfulness is the lifting up lifting up of values and virtues. Gratitude affords on gratitude to even having something to look forward to. The acknowledgement of potential can change your actions, your habits, your behaviors, and your outlook in life. Potential does not lie in today or in yesterday, but in tomorrow, in the future. Gratitude re-enchants your outlook. A weak frame, a spirit of ungratefulness leads to the corruption of your integrity and worship, if you're a Christian or other religions. Your moment of resentfulness is a deceit, is a type of blindfulness. It is a type of arrogance. You acknowledge at once that you need to acknowledge that you had a yesterday, but in having a yesterday, you still have what comes next. Here's something controversial. Miracles do happen, but can you acknowledge that? Do you want to acknowledge that? What should you be grateful for? What most likely, what should you be grateful for? Most likely it'll be a specific thing. What you appreciate can show you what your ideals are. What you appreciate can reveal your preferences. Do you prefer to live an easy life? Do you prefer to be comfortable? What are your actual prayers? What are the questions that are like a rock in a shoe? What do you do when you wake up and you're not in the right spirit? What do you do to realign yourself with the culture, with the community, with your loved one, with the divine, with the telos, with the logos? What are the requirements on you? What frames and patterns do you use to recognize? We need to be grateful for things that are before us, the things that are being passed to us, the traditions that we are living in. What are you responsible for? How do you respond in times of challenge? Let me stop there.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean,
Very well,
for me,
Jesse. You work this better. Okay.
so for me, that sort of brings up, a bigger issue in some sense, which is, um, if you think you know your virtues and values, then you must be being grateful for something. And so if you're not being grateful for something, the odds that you understand your virtues and values are probably zero. Right. And so it's taking the time to be grateful, to express gratitude, that gives you the contrast and to orient yourself away from the here and the now, the progress, the pressing needs, and contrast, right, all of the here and now with what's come before, what happened today, what's happening now, what could happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a way of re-enchanting your world. I know the world's already enchanted. Interesting, on the Van der Clay Q&A live stream today, I sent him a comment on one of his videos the other day, and he used a bunch of that language, including he used the whole language of, now some of you are saying, I know about re-enchantment. The world's already enchanted, but I was like, I say that all the time. The world's already enchanted, sure, but it's not re-enchanted for those people, right? Some people are seeing a disenchanted world, right, or a flat world or a compressed world, and the gratitude, and gives you the opportunity to reinflate that world and say the world isn't just these interactions. It's not just what laws are passed or what political parties in power or what I ate for breakfast or, the sum total of the atomic states of whatever was compressed when the Big Bang exploded, or whatever nonsense you come up with in your head. And when we don't take time to express gratitude, we also can't possibly be taking time to understand our virtues and values and orient towards them, right? Because gratitude is the process, is a process of orientation fundamentally, and it's orientation outside of the here and now, but also includes the here and now, but it's outside of it. So it includes it, but it's bigger than just the here and now, which is what we get caught up in, especially in the materialist frame. As I said before, the Christian materialism, like, if Mary hadn't anointed the body, would it have risen? Like, what a ridiculous question. Like, it's just absurd. It's just materialism. The procedures and the processes are important, but they're not everything. And that's the flip that people, oh, this is important. Yeah, probably. But is it everything? No, it's not everything. And people have a hard time differentiating that. And it is that gratitude that gets you out of that cycle to some extent.
My internet's going out. You still got me? Not listening?
It was, yeah. That might
Okay.
be part of your mic
Disconnect.
problems too. I don't know.
I'm not grateful for our wallet internet down here. Hold on. I need to upgrade too. I'm sure that when it comes to paying the internet. It's way overpriced, even on the cheapest section. Okay, so let me know if it's working out. And I want to thank Manuel, Sally Joe, and Mark for helping me get these notes together. I wonder if you can hear in these notes what's Jesse, what's Mark, what's Manuel, what's Sally Joe, what's even Adam. Adam actually added a few things, even though he's a sort of a secret assassin, as you could say, with these opinions and suggestions. It was great. Yeah, even Adam, agreed to stay up late last Friday night for most of you people in the old world. I'm in the new world here. I'm in the new time zone. You guys have the old time. Even I want to say thank you to Adam for agreeing to at least try to stay up in his Irish time to participate in the stream. That's pretty cool. Okay, getting to the next part. Here we go. So we need to try to observe the miracle that is life, and that's hard. Gratitude, thankfulness, and the acknowledgement is the recognition not only of what is good, but the potential itself is good. Being is good. Virtue, appreciation, character, contrast, discernment, and integrity are methods to cultivate a spirit of gratitude. Ungratefulness has arguably become the norm of modernity. Ungratefulness is a lie. It is a cultivated sense of carelessness. Pragmatically, you are here today, in this moment, listening to these words. One thing you could do for a spirit of gratefulness is remember your death and remember that you have life. The ultimate expression of gratitude is that relationship that you have matter, that you are in relationship to yourself, to others, to nature, to the culture, even to the logos. The quality of these relationships matter, and there will be trade-offs. However, your participation in right relationships through gratitude redeems the world. It restores intimacy. So one thing, particularly in England and Australia, there's a custom, right? You're on a bus, you take a bus, or you take some versions of public transport. Before you get off, you thank the bus driver. And this is not just a arbitrary thing, but this is participating in society, right? And this is something that's going to slowly slip away in terms of its value, right? So it shows that you respect yourself, you only respect others for their service, not just because it's a public service, not because they're being paid, but they're participating in the community by participating in the public service. You respect someone's time, energy, and attention. You respect the sentimental bonds of society, of the spirit, of the community. You are in right relationship. What are some of the examples of things that you can be grateful for?
Yeah, I like that. I like that thanking the bus driver. I always did that as a kid too. Because it is a piece of society, a piece of community that you should be grateful for, especially if you rely on the bus. And when I was young, I did. And there's so many things throughout the day to be grateful for. There's so many things right now. Like I'm grateful that I have internet. I'm grateful that I have a microphone that works better than the audio engineer's microphone. I'm grateful that I have my computer and I was driving today top down with the convertible, and yeah, really grateful for that. and just the ability to listen to Paul VanderKlay while I'm driving to a meeting. These are miracles that you can listen to a live stream from somebody in Sacramento, California, while you're driving down the street in Columbia,
Yeah.
South Carolina. So yeah, and it's important to recognize how much we benefit from society and from all the things going on in society and all the people that make that possible for us.
Yeah. I was even last night reflecting. I went and saw a film. I went and saw a film. Maybe I'll say it later. In the context of this monologue called The Starlight. And I was driving back, and I became aware that at any moment I could say to the Spotify AI car engine Siri, or the Apple and say, "Hey, play this, play Chopin, play Schubert. Okay, let's go here, let's go this, this." All the world's music, you could say, majority, 90% of the world's music can be found on these streaming services. And at clear and clean prompt, bam, it's there, I'm playing. I'm now at 16 Lovers Lane, which is a great album. These are the things you can be grateful for, the culture, people's participation, right? It's not just an artwork, it's an outsourcing of the distributive cognition. It's a aesthetic, right? It's something you participate in. It's not just a church, it's not just a building. It's a place to meet, it's a place to sing, it's a place to worship, it's a place to celebrate, it's a place to commiserate, right? Things are not just the one thing that you want to materialistically see. They have a spirit, a resonance, like what I like to use. Well, they manifest or have phenomena within them, right? And so by observing that, you reorientate yourself, and then through that you pick it twice. That participation is an acceptance of the gratefulness that you have within you, and your lack of participation actually shows you where what you're grateful for or what you're resentful for.
Well said. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Your participation and other people's participation really signals gratitude and ingratitude pretty effectively, and not just their apparent participation, but how they're participating. And you can you can see that. You don't need to, you don't need to propositionalize it or break it down. You can just see it.
Yeah. What's manifest, right? This is the thing, like that smiling phenomenon. You walk down the street, you just smile at people, eventually people smile back at you. Strange phenomena, guys. It works. Try it. If you're not around people, drive to your nearest gas station and be nice to the gas station person. Be nice to your petrol station if you're over here. Yeah. Here we go. Last little section of notes. In every moment, in every given moment, is a gift. It's something that you haven't earned. It brought you to that moment. And in a roundabout way, you have no way of reassuring yourself that there will be another given moment. But that is an opportunity to be grateful. The opportunity in the present moment affords you the experience of wonder and appreciation. It is the opportunity, not the thing that is given to you. That is a blessing. That is the thing to be grateful for. It is the opportunity, not the thing that is given to you. That is a blessing. That is a thing to appreciate. It is a miracle. We didn't have the opportunity to enjoy, to do something. We would be grateful for the gift that is the present moment. The opportunity is the gift, and within every gift is a spirit of gratefulness, a blessing, a thankfulness. Every given moment is a new gift, and if you miss the opportunity, there will be another moment given to you, and then another moment, and then another moment. So at the personal level, we cannot be grateful for the loss and for the bereavement, but we can be grateful for the opportunity, for the discovery, for the development of character. When we are confronted with difficulty, when we're rushing through life, when we're stopping to see the true, the good, and the beautiful, we can be grateful. Once in a while, something very difficult will be given to us. And I've gone through many of these things, and I know Mark's gone through many of these things. But we can be grateful that we got through them. We can be grateful for the lessons that we have learned. We can be grateful for the wisdom that we can impart to others, right? There's a way to participate in that challenge, in that difficulty. This given moment is a chance to learn, to suffer, to stand up. We are given, something are given to us in this moment. There are opportunities, and they avail themselves of these opportunities. And we are the ones that, people that do this are the ones that we admire. They make something out of life. And those who fail to get another opportunity are the ones that we don't appreciate. Another opportunity is another opportunity to see the world, the wonderfulness, the richness of life. How often do we stop? How often do we run through when we don't stop, we don't listen, and we don't appreciate, we miss the opportunities that are before us. We have to build, we have to stop, we have to see the signs in our lives and be grateful for what we have. I could keep going. We'll finish this off. When we don't stop, we don't get to that quietness, we don't find our center, our being, and realize in that moment that being is good, that because you have life, you have something to be grateful for, you have something to give, you have something to offer, you have a way to celebrate. Gnosticism is to say that the world is broken, right? The way to get yourself out of that Gnostic path is to say the world is not broken, the world is beautiful, there are beautiful things all around you. There are miracles at many different layers that you are participating in, right? We live in a beautiful world, a world of wonder, a world of epics, also a world of the routine, a world of mountains and of valleys. When people are grateful, we participate with them. We are participating in a joyfulness, and that's what we need. We need a network of grateful, joyful people, and that will heal the world in some Christian or foundational sense. Or heal the world of materialism, or heal the world of modernity. You can pick your telos, right? But you can at least participate in these layers of being. You can navigate that. There you go. End of monologue.
Very nice. Good ending. I like the ending. The ending was great.
I know
Right.
it's gonna be messy at the end, but yeah.
No, the ending was good. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the key. I mean, we're doing stuff, and whether it's going well or not, we can be grateful for the opportunity. And one of those deep things that people don't understand is that learning is failure. And we don't like failure, but we like
Right.
learning, but we don't like failure. They're the same thing, guys. It's not that you can't learn anything without failure, but what you're learning is not much. You learn far better when you fail at something because it teaches you that your assumptions are wrong. And that's actually really important. And it also
Humbles
teaches
you.
you what to do when that happens because it happens to you and
Oh,
then
yeah.
you have to deal with it. All right. And sometimes the answer
Or
is I
you could
can't
choose
do
not
it.
to, or you could choose not to deal with it, and then you'll become resentful
Right.
and having missed the opportunity. And
Well, that's gonna be next week's theme. I think it's
Yeah.
responsibility. I think,
Ooh.
yeah. I think we're gonna go there. Yeah, I think that's what's important. Is again, the gratitude gives you the ability to orient and navigate against the stream of materialism, against the stream of your normal life, against the stream of everything that's going on. Right, like all of these things are things that need to be pushed against in some fashion. And gratitude is the pushing against sort of the stream of the solipsistic, cynical, skeptical, critical tendency that we have because we live in an imperfect world. And it's really easy to criticize. I mean, I often joke with people about how, I ask them how they're doing and they say, I can't complain. And I'm like, I can show you how to complain. I'm really good at it. Do you need lessons? And they always decline, which is good. but yeah, getting them out of that sort of neutral position. And yeah, I think that I like that you
Well, the neutral
invoke the
position is a lie. The neutral
Huh?
position is actually a lie. In some sense, the neutral position there, right? Like, how are you going? You say fine. Like that's not an answer, right?
Well, it can be
There's
fake.
no
I
way
mean,
to participate. Yeah.
right. There is a neutral answer. The neutrality is in the manifestation of reality or co-manifestation of reality. Right? It's not good or bad yet because you're in the right, and you can couch that in terms of space or time. It doesn't matter. They're transposable. Einstein resolved that for us, right?
Right.
So there is a neutral space, but when you have a negative valence to it, right, or when you're, there's no reason to have a, say can't complain is different from saying, oh well, the day's still here, like that's a very different valence.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. The contextualization of the answer matters, right? The spirit behind the answer, right?
Right. And I want to jump through these comments. So Anselman is trust in ultimate benevolence, be grateful for your existence. That's a good place to start. A lot of people are not. Anselman, it's good when they smile back, but don't be hurt when they don't. Yeah, you smile for the sake of you trying to improve the world, not for the sake of you succeeding. That's where people get messed up. It's like sometimes the success is in the trying, because again, you learn through failure. So, Anselman, always look forward to looking back on your tribulations. That's a good point. We didn't address that, but yeah, it's good to have tribulations, and then you can look back on them. You can always be grateful for your success, in the future. Nathaniel, Gnosticism, like Christianity, is varied. Well, not really. It all reduces to the same thing. The type you were describing might be something like Sethian. Yeah, categorizing Gnosticism is a waste of time. I mean, you can categorize anything to death, right? There's an infinite amount of detail. One of the videos I'm going to work on, I was going to release a video for tomorrow. Maybe I'll set that up after the stream. One of the videos I thought up because I figured out how to do it is on scaling. So I figured out a way to describe scaling to the Muppets. So I'm very happy about this. I'm like, this is so obvious and I can't explain it to anybody. I don't know why, but I think I finally figured it out. So I'm going to be working on that video, and maybe we'll get it out in a week or two. We'll see how motivated I am. I got another video too that I really want to record. Anselman, it's not Gnostic to say the world is broken. That is a Christian position, but it is good despite the brokenness because God is at work in it. Right? Exactly. Yeah, the Gnosticism really comes in and how materialistic you are, right? How focused you are in the here and now. How focused you are on perfection or universality. Those are closely related. If they're not quite the same thing, they might be the same thing. And yeah, I mean, not being able to be grateful for the varied attitude of the people around you, which means there's varied perspectives, which feeds into the distributed cognition. Like you can be grateful for that, even if it's negative. Like, look, the homeless drug addict has a nice contrast to your comfortable life. And you can find gratitude that you're not in that situation because you could be, and you might be someday, or maybe you were in the past because, there are people like that. And, like my uncle used to be an alcoholic and he's not anymore. So, and he talks about it quite a bit. So, yeah, you can always be there, and you
but
can
your
always
relationship
get there.
matters.
Right.
Kind of push back a bit with Anselman though. Your relationship to the world matters, right? And how you frame your relationship to the world matters. So I would say the Christians kind of more say the world is fallen, because it's far deeper word actually than broken. Broken is this Gnostic sense that it can never be fixed. Like what is broken, it can never really truly be put back together in the same context, right? But if something's fallen, right, it can be restored, it can be put upright. Far different way of symbolizing the world. And I tried to watch the Wheel of Time series on Amazon, which is absolute garbage. Don't even go there. But I lasted about 10 seconds before I spewed out a whole rant to my partner. I was like, "What is this Gnostic BS?" Oh, because it's right there, right? If you want a good description of Gnosticism, just read the opening monologue to Amazon's Wheel of Time. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
I
very
think-
true.
Yeah. Also, like, this thing is like, if you don't have this right relationship towards life, you don't see that life itself is a gift, or it's a miracle, right? And you can't have this gift, miracle, blessings of rhetoric inside of the world broken, right? You can't receive a broken gift. When you can, right? You can receive but it's not really a gift at that point. It's an opportunity to fix something, or it's it's an
Right.
opportunity to restore something. It's not.
Right.
It doesn't sit right. Right? If someone wants to give you a broken clock, you're like, oh, okay, you're giving me a challenge. You're not really giving me a gift. Like, okay, I've got to do something about it. Which is fine. The challenge challenge
Right.
is something to be grateful for, but you have to
Right.
recognize the difference between the contrast between what's before you, or the relationship.
Right. Well, and the gratitude really is about looking at that North Star that Jordan Peterson talks about, right? And looking up and taking time to look up and doing that orientation. And he talks about it, right? Oh, the star moves, you move, you try to move closer to the star, and then the star moves in relation to you, and right, it's all talking about orientation. It's and it is the magic in some sense is in that relationship. It's in not your position per se, but your position with your valence relative to the position of the virtues and values you're looking at, which is how you get Christian materialists, is that it's not that their position is wrong, right, per se. I mean, it might also be wrong, but what's really wrong is their valence and their attitude about the world. Like, if you think that the procedure of when you were put in the tomb matters to the resurrection, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's so materialistic. I mean, that's not a modern or modernity problem at all at that point. If you imbibe Enlightenment values, or so you think, because the Enlightenment doesn't actually speak about values. If you think it does, you missed something. Enlightenment just steals its values from Christianity. It doesn't talk about values. It assumes that you're Christian. Period. Little hint.
Or being Christianized.
Right. Well, no, I mean, everybody back then was. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't. The alternative didn't exist in some sense. Not to them. I mean, they were not where they were. It's that relationship that you have to the thing. And one of the problems is that the way the Enlightenment is interpreted, because again, you think there are Enlightenment values or something, which is crazy talk, is a bad relationship to what they were talking about, which is ironically relationship, because that's what philosophy talks about. What's your relationship to your axiomatic assumptions of the world? Yeah, that's all philosophy is. Unlike theology is the other side of the register. It's like, no, how do you come by your virtues and values? Like, what informs that? That's theology, right?
Yeah.
But they're both introducing interesting rabbit holes of materialism in their own way, right? Because when you try to squish that world into, oh, well, it's all just these relationships and they're direct and discrete, one-to-one, you fail. And
what's that word just? That
right.
word just, yeah, right?
It's the reduction, the flattening. Right. And you hear that a lot. It's like, oh, you know what it is? It's just that they want to make money. And that's why the pharma companies did it. Really? No, that can't be true. Very few people do things for just money. And by the way, are they going to be buried with the money? No, of course not. They're going to spend it on something. It's the thing they're spending it on. At the very least, that's the reason they're doing it. Not the money. The money is an interim thing. It doesn't contain a stable value over time. The time value of money is a real thing. So and having gratitude sort of teaches you that to some extent.
Well, the importance too is all the opportunities of what people are really looking for, right? When you have limited potential, right? That's poverty, technically speaking, right? I have the potential to make food for days in my house, right? And that's something to be grateful for, right?
Right.
So you could hardly call me poor in that sense, right? So when you have this limited opportunities before you, these limited potentials, right? That's classically depression as well, right? And depression is kind of the flattening of the world, right? So
right.
The way you get out of that is, realize the groundedness, the bare basicness of what you have for you, right? You might be living on the street, you might be poor, but you might still have your family, and you can start somewhere, right? And that's the opportunities that are before you. I think we even talked to Andre, a couple of months back about starting somewhere, starting local, even if you have to pay to meet up with someone that's a gym coach to encourage you to get you to do things.
Right.
At least you starting somewhere, or I
Right.
think he was having difficulty getting a job. Or find something for a couple of days a week. It might be a meaningless, routine, mundane job, but at least you've got somewhere. You're starting somewhere, right? And that can afford you further and further opportunities. And those opportunities are the things that you'll end up being grateful for, and that will transform how you see the world, how you navigate the patterns.
Right, right. And that gets back to relationship. The thing that re-enchants relationship is gratitude.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for Mark. These streams and him setting up this time here has been it's transformed my life. I'm a better person for it. So hopefully that passes on to you guys, the people that come on each week and either participate in the streams or they at least send the text channels in the comments. We're grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. So I speak on behalf of Mark in that sense. But there are given moments, and we have to appreciate the moments that we're in. And that's another thing. The modern world is probably a bad frame to constantly point back to, but that decontextualization matters because what's his Ian McGilchrist, Tom Holland, very few people now keep putting towards this relationship aspect of life, and that's COVID was the decontextualization of relationships, right? Social distancing,
right. Well, and look, we have a comment from Nathaniel. By the way, Mark, the video where you talked about Star Trek and what formed you as we were watching things that meant a lot to me around age 16, and it's been very illuminating. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing much the same thing, for better and worse. Yeah, it always is. I mean, it's amazing the things you sort of see. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, and maybe Jesse and I will get around to doing this Matrix video we're thinking of. Rewatching The Matrix after listening to Jonathan Peugeot's breakdown of The Matrix 3 times, because it took me 3 times. As many times as I had already watched it and sort of analyzed it actively and broken it down, I got more out of it again, and I'm just like, wow.
The Matrix is about agency. Matrix is about agency.
Well, and the interesting thing that people don't recognize is that you don't ever break out of the Matrix. Like the machines still control everything at the end of the day. Like it's really not a good story. Like not a happy story. Like it's just like, but the machines, you still have to negotiate with them, and they can still snuff you out at any minute. And the fact that they're not choosing to do so is really just this negotiation around power, and they still maintain the power. So it's not like it's a good postmodern power narrative where the people rise up and communism everywhere or something. Like that doesn't happen. Like nobody ever gets out of the Matrix. Even if you're unplugged from the battery portion of the Matrix, you're still not out of the damn Matrix. It's like, wait a minute, is this good? Because they still live close to the earth where it's still warm enough, and they're beneath the city, the sewers of the dead cities. Like they're actually beneath the sewers of the dead cities. It's like, can you get much lower? And it's like, well, no, we're not in hell because we're not in the core of the earth burning. Okay, I guess that's a plus, but
But you're
you know,
close
you
to
can
it.
see the Dante there too, right? Like, hey,
Yeah,
you're in
wow, I've never thought about that. Wow. You know what I'm grateful for? My dad, this is the time of VCR, so this is right? So, and also like taping things, right? You play things on television, you know, look it up and you record what's on television. Yeah, I'm showing my age here, right, guys? You can still do that, by the way, now. It just takes really hard to do it. You can still do it. It's funny that people actually don't, but you still could. Um, not comparing it. Although it used to be a widely accepted practice that something was on television, you just go out and take it, and there you go, you've got it. Right. But what my dad used to do is anytime someone was mature age or have different radio systems, when he would at least let it out from the bits that were asked mature for, but I could at least participate in the story. And one of those was Transformers, Starship Troopers.
Mm.
And then that's a like a key cornerstone for me that because it completely breaks away from sci-fi and Star Wars. It's a complete contrast to that. You know, obviously there's like nudity and a whole bunch of feeling bug violence, which you didn't edit all out. But when I went back in years later, I was like, "There's a shower scene like that." You shoot me, but maybe it doesn't need to be in the film. But yeah, you can be thankful for that which protects you. That's the point there, right? It doesn't fully
Right.
expose you to the insane levels of the world, but at least gives you a sense to participate in them, right? You don't need to know
Right.
how insane everything is, but you can at least get an understanding of how much darkness there is in the world and how complex things are.
Right. Well,
Right.
and you can be grateful for your submission to others taking care of things that you now don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Even if they do so badly, you didn't have to worry about. Like, it's like the one bad thing, right? They do 10 things in the same domain and you pick up on the one mistake. It's like, yeah, but the other 9 times you didn't have to be anxious about it. It's like, isn't that like, you know, like a little thing too, like dinner's just taken care of. And it's
Yeah.
like, well,
Huge. Huge.
maybe it's never what you want to eat ever. Maybe. But you don't have to worry about cooking
Cooking.
it and getting it ready and like because people are always people have a real thing, right? They're always trying to figure out like what my favorite food is, or right? They're always trying to give me my favorite thing. And it's like, I really don't have a favorite thing. I have lots of favorite things and I'm just like content with all kinds of crazy things. You know, like what's your favorite candy? The kind with sugar in it. Or not, because some candies, you know, like I really like I'm just super easy going about these things, right? And people are always trying to anticipate that. And it's like, no, you make me a steak as long as it's decently cooked. If I don't have to cook it, I'm just so grateful that I didn't have to figure out what it was, thaw it out, or prepare it or buy it at the store, right? And then cook it. And I'm just so happy about that. I mean, even just something stupid like grilled cheese. Grilled cheese is one of the easiest things in the world to cook, and it's so flavorful, right? It's like butter and cheese and bread, and like how can you get any better, right? Or you can add some ham. Like
Yeah.
grilled
You
cheese
need
and ham, right?
you
Oh,
need
yum. Yeah, but really, like, it's so much tastier when someone else makes it. I don't know why. I'm just glad that it is. It's because it's easy enough to make, and so yeah, just being able to find the gratitude in that is, I think super important. I did want to go back to the Matrix here because Nathaniel Balthazar refers to Mary and the church as the Matrix. Yeah, well, different kind of matrix, I think. Seems like we all have to enter a matrix or one will be assigned to us. Yeah. If you believe you do not have a
right,
religion, one will be
right.
assigned to you without your knowledge or consent, as I like to say.
That's going to be important in the manual.
Yeah. Well, I like Anselman. Well, matrix is a womb, so Mary giving birth to Christ in the church, which gives birth to the souls. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, not an original thought, Anselman. I don't there aren't a lot of original thoughts. We can be grateful that we rediscover things that other people
yeah.
already knew, right? And
Oh,
we have a real problem with that. So one of the things I learned sort of the other day was my good buddy Jefferson, who's the redneck philosopher king, wonderful human being, one of my favorite peoples. He was telling me about this podcast about this kind of crazy guy, Dr. Jack Kruse, and it was on the Tetragrammaton podcast, which I guess is Rick Rubin's podcast, and he had Huberman on, and this Dr. Kruse guy, and they're talking about all this stuff, and they made this comment in the middle. He basically said, "You've got all these people telling other people that being in the sun is bad for them." Right now, I bought my convertible while I was in Hawaii. By the way, very fortunate. I've gone to Hawaii twice on purpose. Right, I could have bought a cheaper car for sure. I could have bought a car for half the price. It was very nice, actually. I love the Elantra. It was a very nice car. I rented one. I was like, wow, this is actually a really good car. Like for 20 grand, it's fantastic. It's a 10-year warranty. Like, this is great. But I said, no, I need that convertible because I need the sun. I need to get as much sun as I can because I spend way too much time in these silly blue light computers. But they're basically saying that. And I'm going like, yeah, but A, no one's dumb enough to believe it. And B, they probably don't believe it themselves. And then I realized while I'm listening to this podcast, that's wrong. There are doctors who should damn well know better. It is impossible for the sun to be toxic to us because we couldn't be here if that were. It's not like we had early sunscreen and we've been redeveloped. No, like obviously not. It's the sort of thing that's so obvious to me that I was discounting that A, anybody would say it and believe it, and B, that anybody hearing it would actually take something so ridiculous, so obviously incorrect seriously. And yet they're pointing out, no, people say this and believe it, and people take them seriously. And it's like, no, this is bad. And then you see that, to your point, with the fake news virus scamdemic, where it's like, you got to stay indoors and you can't go outside. And, it's like, what? And
we're just doing this to the old people. We're just doing this to the old people. We're doing this to the old people. Like, come on, man. Come on. You should make a difference.
Now your mic went soft again. You gotta fix that. Anselman, vitamin D and E, isn't it? No. Actually, Dr. Kruse does not think so. He thinks it's all light and water. I have to do more research on his water. He talks a lot about semiconductors, and I'm like, some of that I know is wrong, and some of it is correct enough that I'm okay with it. But basically, he points out that people in California have vitamin D deficiencies, and they're in California with like land of sunshine and excellent weather, where you can, basically 12 months out of the year, it's the variability in Monterey, California is like zero. Like in LA is pretty, yearly variability is like nothing. It's always between 60 and 70 or something stupid. It's ridiculously nice weather in California. But the reason why is because of the electromagnetic interference, according to him, electromagnetic interference and some of the things that are affecting the Van Allen belts. I have to look that up. I've heard some of it before. And I'll tell you, when I flew over California, I knew immediately when I was in California. I'm just saying, like, there's weird stuff out there. And he says the same is true in New York City. And I've been to New York City a few times. And yeah, New York City is another one of those places when you're there, you know it. I don't know how you know it, but you can be blindfolded. I'm telling you right now, when I drive, somebody drove me blindfolded around the country and I hit California, New York City, I'd know right away, immediately. I don't know why. So I have some affinity for this idea. He's also got some pretty interesting evidence backing it up. And it's just interesting that people can say sort of, like ridiculous things, like without science, where would we be? I don't know. We got here without science. Like science wasn't eternal. Like, science is a relatively recent thing. And I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again. These, science recently, I don't know if it was this year or just last year, discovered, okay, you ready? Like, brace yourself. Here's what science discovered recently, that if you are in love and you get out of love, rather jarringly, right? It's an exit. Your heart is physically damaged. And I'm like, everyone knew that already for thousands of years. It's in all the literature. It's in all the songs. It's like you're not telling anything new, guys. Like, oh, you validated it through some kind of ridiculous experiment that you probably shouldn't be doing because you're all unethical bastards. Fine, fair enough. But also, no, like we already knew this. We didn't need that. And a few months later, they scientifically proven that if you fall in love, it actually reverses, in some cases, heart damage. We already knew this. Everybody already knew this. This is not new information. I hate to break it, but now we have scientific validation. I have a video on what is science, by the way, where I basically point this out. It's just a form of validation. Yeah, it's independent validation. It might be superior to like thinking it up on your own. Like, fair enough. But it's also only intersubjective validation. It's not anything else, and we get sort of caught up because we're not grateful. Like we're just not. We don't have the level of gratitude for. We've got a sun. The sun appears to be able to shoot UV red radiation light into our entire body, all the way in, and hit your brain and go through your bones.
It literally just started. Coming out.
Right now, it's coming in. Oh, your microphone's still terrible. You got to fix it. What is wrong with you? You're the worst audio engineer in the world, Jesse. I just hate to tell you that. Very low. Why does it get low? It gets low. What? Couldn't hear a word. Like, good job. No, it's way too soft. Why don't you get a real mic? But you can see the scientific scam in this whole interaction with intersubjectively validating that love is real and affects your heart, which everybody, like I said, like the symbol for love is a heart. Like I don't even know. I can't fathom the level of stupidity. I just can't. Be grateful for the past, for the things that are handed down to us. Don't be cynical. Those ancients, they didn't know what they were. No one's gotten past Plato in modern philosophy. No one. And they admit it too. I'm not making this up. Like Heidegger knew, right? He knew. He said it. He wrote it. He said, Plato, I can't get past him. Nietzsche probably knew, although he wouldn't admit it because he's an arrogant bastard. But he always said, Plato, I feel like he's looking over my shoulder. Yeah, he is, because you're not smarter than Plato, because you're overthinking a very simple thing. It's not that hard, right? So yeah, I mean, it's only a problem if your relationship to it is ungrateful or it's cynical or it's skeptical, right? That's where the problems begin. I mean, we can be grateful that we have the writings and we can just read them and understand them.
One thing I've been doing. How's this microphone? Good enough? No?
It's a little bit better, but because I can actually hear what you're saying, but not by much. I couldn't hear any of that. What are you doing wrong with your microphone? Is your gain up to? You're really bassy too. You're bassier than usual. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, it's very muffled. It's weird. I do want to be grateful for everybody and the fact that they actually watch any of this stuff, including my actual videos, and invite everybody on into the stream. So we'll put the link up there. Anybody who wants to join should feel free to do so. And of course, again, I can only pin it on Navigating Patterns, which is my channel, but you should be able to find it in all the chats. So if you want to join in and you're willing to come on camera and not be a troll, we're happy to have you. talking about gratitude, although we can switch to something else. Because I'm
Gratitude.
grateful for your participation and involvement. What do you got, Jesse? Did you fix it?
Okay. Okay. You good?
No,
No? Okay.
absolutely terrible. Very little
Okay.
change. A little bit
Oh,
better.
thank you.
It's really low. Like you're just
Thank
really
you.
low again.
Thank you.
Muffled, you're low, you're bassy. I don't know what you're doing wrong. What are you doing wrong?
Oh, thank you. God.
Do you have a different mic? I can always switch my mics.
StreamYard. It's gonna be StreamYard.
No, that's a mic problem. I can tell just by listening. It's a
Oh,
mic pickup
okay.
issue.
You want to do this?
Unless
Maybe
it's
one-
unless there's a bandwidth constraint on your side or something, and it's
I think
constraining the
there is.
audio channel. That could
I
do it.
think there is. Because if you see it coming up from the other side, the comfortable side, it's I'm coming through very, very loud. I'm actually speaking on my side.
Now you're fine. Well, you're not fine, but now you're better. It's much louder. It could be bandwidth. You should get your internet fixed.
I'm
Do you ever reboot your internet router? That always fixes some things.
not gonna do that. We got
Uh-oh, he's left. Anselman, I have a hearing problem to be attended to, so I have been leaning into my laptop to hear better. Yes, well, that's always a problem. I only have a hearing problem with Jesse because he mumbles. No, he doesn't mumble. It's funny to hear him on Discord because he's usually much clearer on Discord, especially when we're not running cameras. So some of it's definitely a bandwidth issue. But you know, the fact that we can have such luxurious problems is not being able to hear each other well while we're across the world from one another, literally. Sort of like, yeah, okay. What else are you going to complain about that they didn't have the right brand of hot dog in the store, which I was complaining about earlier, by the way, which is why I brought it up. Yeah, you know, at some point your complaints and lack of gratitude are just silly, and we all fall into it. Like I said, I was falling into that today. Yeah, I was like, man, I couldn't get better hot dogs at the store. Why not? This is terrible. And I'm already going to like 3 grocery stores just to get my damn food. And not too happy about that. But you know, you gotta have the Sampel. You gotta have the right tea. Like these things are all critical to a good life. Yeah, Anselman, my illness, my immune system illness means that sometimes my ears don't work at all. So sometimes I get loud and people are like, "Why are you yelling?" And I'm like, I'm yelling? What? I can't hear me yelling. Oops. And then when the inflammation goes down, I can hear again. Although my hearing's not like when I was younger, boy, my hearing was good. It's not that good anymore. Every once in a while it gets much better, but yeah, it's yeah, you got to be grateful for hearing something because something is good, you know? And you can be grateful for being able to hear the truth, even if only occasionally, right? Or experiencing beauty in silence, because that's one affordance you can have from hearing loss. I remember I had an attack of immune system flare up, right? So I basically my body went into immune shock, right? So I was feeling sick and I got off the subway. I was on my way to meet my mother. So I'm feeling sick and I go into anaphylactic shock. Basically, I didn't know it at the time. So I go into this anaphylactic shock state and I'm sitting at this train station and it's the Boylston Street tea stop in Boston, which is, it's one of the closest tea stops to another tea stop. It's right by Park Street. So it's one end of the Boston Commons, a park, right? It's park here, and the other stop is here, still in the park. And what happens when you almost die is you start losing all your senses. So I got tunnel vision, and then my eyes went out, click, and they're wide open. I can't see a thing, and I'm like, and I'm just like, oh, I guess I'm gonna die. That kind of sucks. I'm gonna die at the Boylston Street T stop. Probably nobody will find me for a while. This is like, oh, well, that sucks. What was I? Probably 22. And I have no idea what caused the anaphylactic shock to this day. No idea. But the last thing you lose is your hearing. And I was hearing birds, and I'm in an underground T stop, and I can hear the birds. And I was just amazed. I was like, wow, you can hear birds like this before you die. It's pretty cool. And then I don't know what happened, but everything restarted and my body reset and just. So I'm always very grateful for the fact that that happened, because yeah, I mean, there's some other sort of near death sort of things, but that one was just totally out of the blue. Just get on the train, start feeling a little queasy, start feeling worse, and I'm not, I needed to get to Park Street. That's where you take the red line. I was taking the red line to the end, to Alewife Station. And I didn't make it. I had to get off at Boylston Street, which, like I said, it's very close T stop to the next T stop. You can walk from one to the other pretty easily. And I had to get off. And I just sitting at this barrel. I thought I was going to throw up. I was sitting at this on a bench next to a barrel. And I don't think I threw up. I don't quite remember. Didn't have anything in my stomach anyway. And yeah, I mean, vision goes, it's weird losing your vision like that. Like your eyes are wide open and you just can't see. And like everything turns gray and then black. It's like, whoa, that's freaky. And all you can hear are birds. And I was like, wow, I can hear these birds. And yeah, then everything reset. I was like, whoa. And then everything came back online, and then I could see again. And the whole time my eyes were wide open. So it was very strange. Your vision goes, it's like, whoa, you get anti-tunnel vision. It's pretty wild. Jesse's back. All right.
How's this? Is it better?
There is a bell.
What the? Okay. Guys, convincing me to, yeah. Gonna cancel Vodafone. All right.
Clear as a bell. Like, best it's been all stream, for sure.
Why did you tell me? I could have. Okay. All right. Don't complain. There's the rule. Be grateful. Just move forward.
Be grateful.
Get to talk to your friends. Yeah.
I'm glad you figured it out.
Any comments?
Anselman says, way to go listening to Birdsong. Yeah, if I had died that day, I would have at least listened to Birdsong, and glad you came through okay. Well, I'm glad that you're glad. Otherwise, there'd be no streams. That's for sure. If you die when you're 22 at the Boylston Street T stop, yeah, there are no streams. That is true. YouTube wasn't a thing. So, yeah. It was.
Is this the same Nathaniel as last that came on a couple weeks ago? If so, you should come on the video chat and come chat to us. Because talking in person is better than sending messages, if possible.
Nathaniel, well, yeah. I mean, I'm just grateful for any interaction at all, or any viewers for them.
Exactly.
Nathaniel, thanks for turning me on to Sugru on postmodernism. Great stuff. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, I love Sugru's stuff. It's fantastic. Him and Stoloff are fantastic. Have you seen the one on Kant's moral philosophy? I think I did. But I have to watch Sugru again. Manuel's been having a Sugru revival because we get turned on to him early as a result of the meditation series. Because one of the guys in the meditation series, Rob, who's a wonderful human being, I got to meet him at Thunder Bay. He found him or knew of him, and he was local to Rob at the time, I think, because he's in Florida. So he kind of turned us on to that, and it's quite good stuff. It's kind of amazing that stuff is there and has been out there that long, and nobody engages. It's this Tetragrammaton podcast with Dr. Jack Cruz and Huberman, the Rick Rubin's podcast there. he's talking about these papers from the 1920s and the 60s, and like all this stuff has been known and nobody's paid attention, right? And that's the world we live in. It's a fallen world. And what does Anselm say? And for that minute, the blackbird sang nearby. Around him, missed your father, and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. Aha. I do not know that poem, but I'm glad you shared it. I'm grateful for the interaction. Whoops. Nathaniel. Yeah, that's me. I need a mic and a camera. I know it's 2023. How do you get a computer without a mic and a camera? I thought it was impossible. I'll join when I can. I'll appreciate the interaction in the meantime. Yes. Who's
You don't need this.
Edward Thomas Poet. Okay, well, is he in my Norton Anthology of Poetry? Then I'll check him out. Otherwise, I won't.
You don't need this fancy technology. In fact, it's probably a hindrance because half of the time it breaks down.
Yes, half the time it does break down. All you need is tea. I have my marathon tea from Table Rock Tea Company right here.
You definitely need coffee and wine.
No, wine maybe. I don't drink alcohol, but
and honey actually.
Budget PC does not come with a webcam. Really? That's shocking. Shocking.
I mean, these phones the other day. These phones are pretty good.
Yeah, I've gone on live streams on phones and Chromebooks and stuff. In fact, early on, I was doing all the live streams on the Chromebook. So, like Jacob's early live streams, when I'd go on, I'd just use my Chromebook because I wasn't in the office. I was, out in the living room, hanging out.
Yeah.
And doing stuff. So, yeah. All right, I'm gonna take a quick break. I will be right back.
Oh, okay.
Talk about gratitude while I'm breaking.
Oh, gratitude. Let's get back to my notes here. So how do you observe the situation that you're in, the life that you have, the potential that is before you? You start small. You start with the frames that you have. And you humble yourself. You find a telos that aligns to the true, the good, the beautiful. One practice that you can do is you write down as many of the questions that you have in the current moment. Perhaps they're not genuine questions. Perhaps they're not helpful questions. But having written them down gives you an orientation. It gives you a focus. It helps you map your thoughts. Perhaps the questions that you have currently are not the right questions, but they can lead you to a better orientation. Conversely, you can make a list or write down or just think up, or even just, you could even just walk the streets. One of the practices I've done is just walk the streets and just say out loud the things that you're grateful for. You don't even have to write down your thoughts so much as give voice to them, give resonance to them. Perhaps you have more things to be grateful for than you first realize.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of practices you can do around gratitude, right? Like you said, you can just walk the streets and be grateful for the things around you and the fact that you live in this wonderful time, the best time ever to have lived anywhere in history. Almost no matter what your country you're in, too.
Yeah, that's true.
The amenities available to people right now are greater than the amenities available to people 100 years ago. Right. So even the poorest people has better plumbing than Rockefeller had back when he had what would be the equivalent of $1 trillion, by the way, just so you know. I know people lie about that number, but if you watch the internet and you actually see that it changed, yeah, you know you're being lied to. So you can be grateful for the fact that you can figure that out. You can be grateful for the fact that you can engage with Sagru, who has a wonderful YouTube channel, where he's posting, all these old videos from the lectures look like they're from the 90s or something. They look quite old. I don't remember. I think we figured it out at one point, but I don't remember for sure how old they are. You can be grateful, not just in prayer, not just in like walking around, but the gratitude is the thing that's giving you that orientation, because you're pointing up and out, hopefully not at something in particular only. You can embody that by reminding yourself that you have thoughts.
This is why mindfulness works in some aspects, and you can't do mindfulness correctly, in my opinion, without setting yourself a time limit, a boundary, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just sitting there with your thoughts, and that container, that boundary line, that sacred time, that given moment, right? It helps you contextualize your thoughts, helps you contextualize your world.
Right. Oh, and here it's Anselman. I voice my thanks to my late parents as I look at their photographs, part of my grateful prayers to God. Yeah, well, that's another, that's definitely a way to do it.
Well, here's the thought, guys. Print your photographs. Don't just have them on your phone. Print them. Have them.
Yeah. I have a photo printer, actually, for that reason. So I can print photos out every once in a while and have them available. I have photographs here on my desk. When people send me photographs, I tend to put them out where I can see them. And just the exploration or search for things to be grateful for is valuable in and of itself. I think part of the problem is we're always trying to stay busy or be efficient or whatever, and then we're not leaving the time and space to be grateful anymore, right? And what that means is you're not orienting yourself in the world anymore. Again, this goes back to, how do you know your virtues and values if you're not being grateful, right? If you're not, the one real change point for me was when I was doing the Vervaeke meditation. At one point, he talked about savoring, and I was like, "Ooh, savoring as a practice." Like, figure out what you're connected to in your office, in nature, and then I started, going outside again and walking through, and like, wow, look at these flowers and these plants just growing up without any help from me, because I'm plant retarded. Gardening is not my thing. But somebody already set it up. So it was like, oh, okay, we just engage with the garden that's here. And that was very, very, very good for me, was to be able to savoring as a form of gratitude, right? Because you're enjoying and appreciating what's around you.
Even in the little things, like don't just scoff your chocolate or your candy down. Like savor it there, right? Same thing with any sort of meal, right? We're so busy to consume, right? One of my ideas for a YouTube channel is actually just to sit on camera and eat chocolate and tell people what I think about it, if it's garbage or not.
Right.
Just they can heal the world just there. Just the very thing that a lot of people can agree upon is chocolate is the least tastes nice, and there's a lot of garbage chocolate, and it might be a bit fun to criticize it and just be like, this tastes like old biscuits or something, but it'll taste like gravel. But these are your habits, right? And you can cultivate your habits to be to be at least aimed positively.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to address Anselman. Mindfulness is best done in countryside. I'm grateful for access locally. Yeah. Well, and Vervaeke even pushes back against the mindfulness revolution, which I very much agree with, right? Because it's too much here and now, here and now, here
Yep.
and now. It's like, that's
Okay,
great.
yeah.
Sunshine, breezes, scents, and colors. You can focus intensely. Right. Because you have contrast. Like, you focus on the flowers and the breeze is still there and the sunshine is still there. You focus on the sunshine, the flowers still there, the breeze is still there. You focus on the breeze, right? And there's so many things like that. And then that re-enchants the world for you again, right? And it gives you a way to orient, because now you're not just looking at one thing, right? You're not just paying attention to one thing. You're appreciating one thing among many. And that's where the gratitude comes in. Sure, absolutely. Savor Pellegrino Acqua Mineral. Yes, that you should do that. I do. It's also therapy. So there's a lot of lithium in here. That's all I'm going to say. That's what I was told.
Really?
Anyway. I looked it up once. Yeah, I looked it up once. I was like, yeah, there is a lot.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, in this whole thing about water, they were talking about deuterium reduced water.
Mm.
So water with less deuterium in it is supposed to, like, I couldn't follow all the stuff, and I'm not done.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories. Yeah.
It's a 2-part thing. So, but it's interesting. I mean, again, a lot of the stuff he said wasn't wrong. There were a couple things that I'm like, no, that's definitely not right. And there were a bunch of things that I was like, well, I don't know about that. I'm gonna have to do some research. But yeah, red light, less blue light, and water, and that was his whole thing. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And he claims he reversed albinoism, or yeah, what was the condition that Michael Jackson had? He reversed that condition in a few months with light therapy. I was like, what? That's amazing if it's true. I don't know.
Red lights. Have you done a red light sauna? Have you ever done something like that?
Yeah. I have an infrared light pad, actually. It helped quite a bit with my illness, actually. Yeah.
I want to get one. But it's a decent chunk of money, but I want to convince when because we're going to move across states eventually. Yeah, I want to convince my dad to go in and get a little booth. Be like, Dad, we'll split it 50-50. Come on, and then you just come around whenever you want. Or just, sauna again. You'd be grateful in a sauna, right, for that small amount of suffering. But then when you're out of that, whoo!
And also those practices. Like, we used to go to the Roman bath. Yeah. Right. We used to, like, there were deliberate time, and some people still do it. Right. They go to the sauna. And what are you doing while you're sitting there? Well, that's your time for gratitude right there, right? That's the time to savor your being alive and your health and consider all the, negative alternatives. And so I one of the reasons I wasn't here last week was I was driving up to New England because my cousin had a combined graduation and birthday party for his eldest daughter. And I wanted to drive up, and usually when I drive up, because I'm basically spoiled, and not working aside from making me very, very poor, means I can leave whenever I want. So what I do is I know when all the traffic is and where it's going to be, so I time everything so that I don't have any traffic, and I just have me and the top down. And usually I pick a route that I like I go over the Bay Bridge Tunnel, which is just gorgeous. And I would never normally travel on a Friday because Fridays are wacky traffic days. Like, it doesn't, when you're driving up the East Coast, because somebody said this, well, people are leaving the city. I'm like, okay, but I'm driving through the city. So maybe there's no traffic on my way into the city, but I have to drive past the city, and then there's traffic. You're not getting out of anything. And I wanted to visit Bruce. He's been on some of the live streams here, and he's been on Vanderklay's live stream and stuff. And he does this thing on Thursday nights, which is alcohol and smoking, pipes, and theology discussion. But it's Thursday night, and he's halfway, which is great, right? Like, I got a free place to stay. That's wonderful. So I drove up there on a Thursday night, realizing, then I have to drive on Friday to get to New England, and that's going to be terrible. And it was really not fun, but it was worth it, right? Because I got to experience the Thursday night thing that normally I wouldn't have gotten to experience. So that's the thing. Like, it is, being grateful for the opportunity, right? Being grateful for the drive. I mean, these long drives, I think it was 16 hours up or 15 hours up. Yeah, it was a long drive. And then I did the drive back in one day, actually. I don't know how.
I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you did that.
Look, I used to drive 16 hours down here one way without a problem. I only had a problem when I took the other car. So I used to have a blue Chrysler Sebring convertible, which is awesome. And that car is just built to cruise forever, right? It's a comfort vehicle. So it's just designed to be able to driven for hours on end. But then I came down in the winter and I took the all-wheel drive Subaru, and it was an older used car, right? I was driving mostly used cars until recently. You cannot drive that car for 15 hours because you can't sit in it for 15 hours comfortably. So I drove down and I was so sore and damaged and hurt, and I was just wrecked. I was like, wow. So when I drove back, I stopped in Maryland halfway and took a rest. And then it was okay because you get about 8 hours in that car. And it's just miserable. I never did that again. That once. I was like, I'm never driving this car all the way again. But when you're doing these long drives, you have time to think about things and be grateful and listen to podcasts, and, relax and hear music that normally you might not listen to, right? There's a lot of long, especially classical pieces, right, that are best listened to, over an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, right? And it's hard to get that kind of time. I don't know about Anselman here. Do you have to beat yourself with twigs like the Russian? I would be uncomfortable in a sauna, I'm sure. Everyone's uncomfortable in a sauna. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember one of my moments I'm grateful for when we visited Japan in Osaka. We stayed near a bathhouse. It's probably one of my most peak cultural shock moments in my life. I can't speak Japanese, or I can speak Japanese very, very poorly. And so I go in, I fumble English with this guy. I pay for the access to the baths. It's all open space. So once you pass the female-male divide, it's just okay. You're in this changing area, and then there's glass doors and glass windows into the baths, and then there's another little room for the sauna. And all he did was give me some soap, a little bar of soap, no stool or anything, a bit of a towel, and he's like, "That's it. Like it's up to you, mate." And so I'm there taking off my clothes, wrapping myself with a towel. I don't know any of the customs, so I go in, I open the door, I get all looked at because here's this foreigner, here's this stranger coming into their normal mundane space. I pick up a stool. No, don't pick up a stool at the point. No, I don't pick up a stool because all the stools are all the way at the other end because you're meant to shower yourself first before you get into these baths. So I go there. I go right to the back. I'm thinking, okay, I'll go to the back one. It's already near a shower station. I'll pick there. To my surprise, I pick someone else's stool. I don't know the customs. So this 50-year-old Japanese guy runs butt naked from the other side of the room going, no, that's mine. Don't take my stool. You go get another one from over here.
Wow.
And then but I'm grateful for that moment. I'm great. There's no way to write that moment in ChatGPT or in a tale. That's an authentic moment. And they're just, I know it's a shocking image to imagine a Japanese guy and he's Jack Jones running across the sauna to tell you, hey, that's not on. This is how you do it. And then to go through and then they welcomed me and they could see that I did the same custom of putting the towel on the head and I was cool with them. And then some German guys actually came in later that made it a little bit more a little bit more authentic in some sense because they could trade English and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these moments that you have in life, you should cherish them. You should try and record them or have a note somewhere, note them down, because they remind you of the goodness, right? and that's it's a very thing hard to cultivate. One thing I wanted to run by you, Mark, is I made a claim. I'm not sure if it's a right claim, but a weak frame leads to ungratefulness or a spirit of resentfulness.
Yeah, among other things, right? No, I think that's correct, and I think also the other factor there is that the lack of gratitude is the thing that causes and is also caused by idolatry as such.
Ooh. Yeah, because I could in that moment in the bathtub, right? I could see it as a moment of shame, right? As dishonor, or I could be grateful for the chance to learn, to appreciate, to engage in the culture shock and engage in the sacredness of, okay, these are your customs. I'm in your land. Like I'm having, but this is a positive experience, not a negative experience.
But that's part of the flattening or the compression of the world too, right? Is that if all you have is your interaction in the moment, whether that's mindfulness or whatever else, if that's all you have, you're screwed. Because you don't have access to the three transcendentals. You don't have access to virtues and values. You don't have access to any of this other stuff. Like it's not, that access doesn't exist for you. And so the way you know the true, the good, and the beautiful, the way you know virtues and values is through gratitude, because you're looking up at some ideal and realizing that it is obtainable partially and also in potential. And that's part of the orientation. And when you don't do that enough, you lose those orientations. I mean, a lot of my channel is about orientation and skills of orientation, obviously, right? The fact that dualisms are false, all binaries are false, it's just not the way the world is. But
dialectic is unhelpful.
Right. Well, yes. But also, when you don't engage with that, the problem is the world becomes flat and disenchanted. And at the same time, you lose the skill of navigation, of orienting yourself properly in the world. So it all goes away, all at once, right? And then you can't make moral claims.
Yeah, that's wow. There you go with responsibility, right? Right, because you can only discern the right sense of responsibility through good ethical or good moral frameworks, right? And when you've decontextualized moral frameworks or customs or aesthetics or traditions, right, you don't know how to respond responsibility to the circumstances of life or the given moment you're in.
Right. Right. You don't have a way to be grateful because you lost the skill of practicing gratitude. And you can't be responsible. You can't judge, even though you have to take an action. So you're caught in this, we have to judge to take action. We have to take action. Otherwise we're not alive, technically. Right? So what you're doing is you're degrading virtues and values.
We're improperly discerning too, right? If your discernment does not have a spirit of gratefulness kind of attached to it in some aspects, or you can kind of counterbalance, right? You're always going to discern things through the inner critic, through the left-handed demon, if you want to use Freudian, like the angel and demon on your shoulder, right?
Yeah. Well, you only have an angel or a demon, and the problem is which is which. And without that orientation towards something you can be grateful for, in the past and in the future, right? The potential and the actual or the manifest.
Yeah.
Then again, there's the manifest, the stuff in the past, there's the potential, and there's where you are now. That's still 3 points. Now you can orient. Can't orient with 2 points. All you have is direction. Direction's not good enough. Try sailing a boat with direction. Good luck. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. You're not gonna
Well,
get
try
anywhere.
climbing.
It won't work.
Try climbing a mountain without direction. I mean, with just direction, right? You have to navigate. Oh, right. This is no longer the right path to make. I need to make or climbing a mountain face. All right, I've improperly scaled where I'm at. I need to readjust.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's what
Just
the
reminds-
gratitude gives you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, where have I been? Oh, can I go down to go back up? Can I go left and then go back right? Can you need
Humility.
gratitude to appreciate that you can. Like, yeah, you made a mistake, but you got this far. That's something to be grateful for.
Yeah. Well, lack of humility or embodied humility, right? Maybe your humility is always external and it's not an embodied. I want to say internal. I think embodied is the better sense of the internal, right? Because you can internalize something, but if it's not kind of manifesting in what your behaviors and your actions, right?
Right.
It's just good knowledge.
Embodies
So it's-
perfect because you can do things in your head and everything in your head is perfect. But if it doesn't manifest in your body, nobody else can tell.
Yeah.
And this is why meditation is dangerous. This is why I made that, when we were talking about discernment, judgment, and action, and everyone flipped out when I was doing my action monologue. And I said, if your action is not external to you, it's not an action. And they were like, no,
Yeah.
meditation's an action. And I'm like, no, it absolutely is not an action. And the reason why you have to think of it that way, whether I'm right or not, is not even relevant. The reason you have to think of it that way is because you don't know if you're doing stuff if it's not external to you and somebody else can observe it. Right. This is where I redeem science as intersubjective validation. There's the redemption of science for me, is that, the sanity is defined by other people, not just you.
Yeah.
And they can't judge your sanity if you're just stuck in your head. It's not possible. It's technically impossible.
Well, Jordan Peterson, right? That's that great quote he has, which is saying that you outsource your sanity, right? It's not a purely device for your own reason, right?
Right.
Like, and if you're not humbled by the people around you, you don't have external inputs, you can lead yourself very easily astray, very, very easily.
Right.
One acceptance of the inner critic can destroy your life for years in some aspects, because you're basing your actions upon an unvalidated or on improper wisdom would be the other way, right? If you want to, or a muse,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but again, that's why the embodiment is important, because if you don't act it out, you don't know if it works. Everything works in your head. Everything, anything you can imagine in your head. Talking purple unicorns. Yep, I've got one in my head. It's fantastic. Would you like to meet it? And I can't embody the purple talking unicorn. I can't do it. And I can't be grateful for it, because in a sense, it's not manifest enough.
Can you participate in a fantasy though?
I don't think you do. I think what you do is you try to manifest a fantasy, right? You try to embody it, and you can embody anything you want. And that's where people get upset. They want the law to stop them from embodying bad things. It's like, well, which law are we talking about? We're talking about natural law, and is that different from the law of God? Or are we talking about the law of man, which is fungible, as we like I don't know.
Social distancing. Yeah.
I was on the Break the Rules podcast live stream. They did a live stream with Catherine Brodsky, one of the best journalists out there for sure. And so I jumped on because I like to support Catherine as much as I can. And I have deep disagreements with some of her stuff. Good night, Anselman. Grateful hearts. I hope so. We're grateful for your involvement. Anyway.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so I was on that live stream, and it struck me the people I was talking to. I mean, I basically just said, yeah, maybe you can't afford to live in the city, but that doesn't mean you can't afford a house. Like, it's not true in the United States. There's plenty of cheap housing right here. I can just go down the street and point you to cheap housing. I'm 20 miles from a capital city of a state. You know, I'm an hour and a half from an international airport. It's almost all highway, by the way. It's not that bad, right? And it's so cheap to live here. When I was outside of Boston, I was 25 miles outside of Boston. And it was still an hour and a half from the airport, although they fixed that. I got about 45 minutes from the airport. But that's the problem, is that when you're not grateful for the things that you have, you take them for granted. And in your head, everybody should solve the problem of, I can't do the job I want, the way I want, and afford a family, and to live in the city, and have the house I want. Really genius. I can't either. This is a universal problem. I don't know why you should get special treatment to have it solved, but it was them not being grateful. And all I said was, you have a choice. Right? You're just not accounting for the trade-off. And they were all upset. People were.
The other thing too is you can't prioritize happiness. Like happiness, right? Happy is happening. It's in the moment, right? You can't prioritize that. You're embodying actions which you cannot control if you prioritize happiness, right? Or your immediate gratification.
You can be grateful that you are happy, but true gratitude is really just about contentedness.
Yes. Well, the thankfulness as well, which we haven't talked about.
Embodying gratitude is the thing that makes you content at the same time.
Yes.
Like
yes.
It's this reciprocal relationship, right?
People miss this.
Right.
How do they miss this? Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like you can't really be content if you're in the here and now all the time and trying to do the next big thing and get this done and get that done and you burn out, right? You make yourself anxious and then you burn out.
Yeah. Burnout's a real phenomenon.
Well, and that's lack of gratitude. I mean, you're going to burn out without gratitude. Gratitude's the thing. You're taking the time and space to stop being anxious, about potential, because you're trying to live in the potential constantly, and you can't live in the potential constantly. It's not
well, you need to have mountains and valleys, right? The cyclical, if you don't have this cyclical nature of time or a seasonal approach to life, right? You are going to lead yourself to burnout, right? Because not all candles last.
Right.
But but light lasts, right? The phenomena of light lasts. So you have to start a new season, a new cycle. This is what I'm trying to get towards. They get too stuck on the metaphor, but
right. And how are you embodying that cycle? Gratitude. Gratitude's part of that cycle, right? It's part of the proper cycle of engagement in your relationship and the quality of your relationship with the world.
Quality. How does quality relate to gratefulness? So quality.
That's what you're doing in gratitude.
Yeah.
You're exploring quality. You're out of the realm of quantity, and you're into the realm of quality. And you're sensing, because you can't measure quality. It's my argument. You can't measure. It is definitionally a thing you cannot measure. Right? And the materialists have a real hard time with that when we get it. But
well, the naturalists.
The way you interface with quality, the way you understand quality, the way you embody quality is gratitude.
It also, the virtues and values of underneath things are how you appreciate quality, right?
Right.
Is that great? I'm not sure if anyone's seen this, but the great clip of Henry Cavill recently, and he gets mocked by the TV presenter and the women on the panel because he appreciates Warhammer 40k, but instantly the other guy in the other room is like, oh, I do this, I do that, and there's that quick trade of like, I'm grateful for you bringing this up because I can appreciate something with you. We can make this relationship, this connection, because we find quality in something. And it kind of, it's one of those like gotcha moments, like the Jordan Peterson moments. Like people put it up as like, the content was put up as like, isn't this funny on Henry Cavill's part? It was like, no, this actually signals a completely different set of virtues and values that many people, not just men, actually appreciate. Which is, someone that breaks the ground, the taboo of, we all find quality in something, but who's going to be the first person to admit this?
Right. Well, and you see that too in Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad's been posting about his adventures in painting Warhammer 40k characters and stuff. And people went after him on Twitter, and he's like, no, you just don't understand. Very nicely, nicer than I would have been. Yeah. Well, I don't suffer fools, right? I'm like, all right, you're just dumb.
I don't even play 40k. I've barely scratched the surface on it. But you can point towards it. It's like, okay, it does restore something in the world with that's been lost, which is religion, a game, sport. Yeah, it's a re-enchantment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there is a line. I mean, this is part of the problem. It's like, well, we need to remove myth from the world. Yeah, that's not going to happen. We need to remove entertainment from the world. You remove entertainment from the world, you get war. That's literally, like, that's how that works, guys. I hate to break it to you, but that's how it works. Like, you remove gaming, whether it's Incan football, right, or soccer, where they use human heads, or killed everybody who lost, or it's modern American football, or European soccer, or
boxing was a big deal.
Boxing, right? And there's so many examples, and there's all kinds of games throughout history,
chess,
even board games.
Yeah.
If we don't have a way to compete up the hierarchy, then our only way to compete up the hierarchy is war. It doesn't have to be a war that results in death, but it has to be a war that results in defeat. It's like
it's a loss of appreciation too, right?
And maybe this way of engaging in entertainment type games, which maybe they're not, allows us to be grateful for what we can't do and others can.
And there has to be a space to entertain ideas or entertain thoughts or feelings, emotions, spirits, right?
Right. But even just
contain
having
them
space to do that. Yeah. How do you practice that? Gratitude, right? And B, what is the way of interfacing ideas? Ideas have quality. You don't count the number of ideas you have and go, I have 10 ideas. Oh. No. Right. Maybe your ideas are stupid.
Probably, yeah.
Most of mine are. It's just I'm grateful that I can usually weed them out before I speak them.
I'm a Muppet, so I just learned to humble myself. I'm like, I said that, I misspoke. I'm grateful this week I spoke to Burnt Power, so that's probably coming out sometime this weekend.
Oh, great.
And I misspoke all the time throughout that. Gosh, every 5 minutes I was like, I was in my head going, I should have said it this way. Damn it. He's saying this. I should have jumped. But no, I shouldn't look back on that and reflect in the negative. I should be like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to him. I'll be grateful for another opportunity to talk to him just as much as I appreciate these conversations.
Where's that coming out, Jesse?
He said sometime this weekend. He was gonna release something else first, and then he appreciated my thoughts on my experiences with Christians and music, and so yeah, he's gonna put that out. So,
and is that on the Anadromous channel that he has?
That's gonna be on the Anadromous, yeah.
Oh, great! So, I'm looking.
Yeah, he's trying to get me to come. Yeah, thank you. He's trying to get me to come to Georgia. He spends a decent amount of money to come to his Georgia festival, which I don't know. Maybe if I get a few more photography gigs, we'll see.
Yeah,
so, it's a bunch of money. It's about $5,000 for me to come. all up.
Yeah.
Once you actually factor everything, like the flights and then the actual things and accommodation, and you're never just there for 7 days. It's like, oh, it's just 7-day thing. I'm like, it's 14 because I'll do your thing and then I got to do my own thing since I've left the country. Like, I live in this prison planet, prison island.
Yeah, I did this foolish thing of go up to New England for a long weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Monday was Memorial Day. Right. And so, I mean, originally it was going to be 2 days up and 2 days back of driving. To have 3 days there. And I've never done anything like that before. Usually I go up to New England, it's 2 weeks. I'm up for 2 weeks because, hey, I'm not working. And, all the work that I am doing is easily done remote. So it's not really a big deal. But everybody's like, what the hell? And I'm like, nah, I got to be back here. I got meetings to do. I got, and maybe by some miracle, I'll have some money soon. One of these small businesses will get funded, and then I'll be fine, and I can travel to Georgia myself and Tbilisi, Georgia. I was in Georgia today. It just wasn't Tbilisi, Georgia. It was Georgia. It was funny too. The place we went was literally right over the river, and the river's the dividing line between South Carolina and Georgia. So it was like we were kind of in Georgia, but not a lot because
that'd be crazy, Mark. If we both met in that Georgia, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. When is his fest? Do you know?
I think it's in October.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the week of my birthday. It's around the 7th. So.
Oh,
I think it's the 4th. The 1st. Yeah. I know.
Well, if
I technically have the money, but I shouldn't spend it. Put it that way.
If I have the money by October, I'll go and we'll meet up. How's that?
Don't do this to me, Mark. Don't challenge me. The other day, Sally Jo was like, "Have you heard of this book club called The Great Conversation?" Which happens to very interesting coincide with Peterson's great books list. She was like, "Have you heard about this? You probably read some of the books already." It's like, Sally, I don't need this. This is my type of thing. You give me a decent list that's recommended, and you give me a club and an affiliation, I'm going to be bought in. I don't need this. Because what's a way to participate, right? It's not just secret or forbidden knowledge. It's actually this is you're carrying on a tradition too, which traditions sustain people, which they don't realize. They're not grateful for the traditions that we have.
Right. Right.
I'm looking at you, Sister Act.
It's a big issue. I'm doing the Texas Wisdom Community YouTube channel has the book clubs that we're doing on the Plato's Republic, which I'm grateful for. And of course, I'm way behind. And of course, that's the next thing I have to do. So basically, when I get off the stream, I can do some reading because I can't rely on reading in the morning because I missed a week. They skipped last week. But the week before I missed too, right?
That's good.
I was busy. Lots of vacations. So I'm way behind.
No, it's good. You need. Well,
I mean, it's good to engage with, right? So, man, am I super busy? I got all kinds of stuff to do. I'm working on way too many projects at once. It's bad timing for me to go drive up to New England.
Well, you're trying to get funding, so.
Huh?
What's important, though? What's important? That's the thing. I think I stressed that.
Yeah.
Which is what's important. Where you at?
Right. Well, and the problem
is you don't have that.
Really important, right?
Well, that's life is. I might be fun and geekly on the streams, but I'm actually quite a serious person off camera. I take things way too seriously, and maybe it's a bit aspersions on my part, but I tend to be quite serious about things because you only have so much time, right?
Right.
And you should actually maintain a quality control over your life, right? You shouldn't maintain bad things, bad decisions.
Right. Well, but
I have a 15-minute grace. I know you don't watch a lot of
So sometimes just stuff comes up all at once, and you have no choice. And it's like, oh, well, I'm busier now than I'm used to being, but also it is what it is. It could couldn't have unfolded, any differently. So.
I just cut out. Damn it.
You did? Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's doing that. It shouldn't.
Uh-oh.
It shouldn't. We're here? We're here. Look, yeah, part of the Muppet crisis too is this hubris, this sense of improper gratitude. So yeah, it's been good to dwell on this subject because it connects a few dots for me.
Oh, good. You might find.
Do we have anyone in the chat?
You might find Vanderklay's stuff interesting too from today. When he answered my question, because I asked him the question.
Oh, okay. I think I did submit it.
Yeah. What about what's the Christian answer to the meaning crisis? What's the answer to the faith crisis of faith, right? And what's the difference between men and women in these crises? And it's interesting to me that his meaning crisis answer was way more Christian, like far more Christian than his crisis of faith answer. And I'm like, this is exactly the problem. You're never going to do what Peterson does if you're using this highly Christian language and framework to help people in the meaning crisis. It's never going to work. And I found it fascinating that he did that, which I would call a mistake. I asked the question in the Q&A to figure out where he's at with these things and to start the conversation, to manipulate. And I actually said it like, I'm manipulating the conversation here. I want the answer to these three questions for a reason. And I'm grateful that he bothered to answer it. He could have skipped over it and said, "Oh, Mark, you silly person." And I wouldn't have blamed him at all. Like, yeah, fair enough. I do enough manipulation here. So. Hey, Nick, it's good to see you, my friend.
Is this Nick? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of the Nicks. There's two Nicks. This is the low-grade Nick.
Hey, Nick, what are you grateful for?
Huh?
What are you grateful for?
Yeah, audience, what are you
should ask Anselman that. Mm-hmm.
He kind of answered, though. I mean, he's living the life over there. So, yeah, but you're right. We should have asked everybody to pipe in with what they're grateful for. What things do you feel?
I did. A long week.
No. He says he's grateful for Friday right now.
Oh.
There you go. Because of the long week. Fair enough. Oh, Takuan Soho, my Yamaki guitar. Man, my brain is not working. Do you know anything about this type of guitar there?
I've never heard of that. Never heard of that brand.
You're the musician, man. Don't look at me. I don't know anything about guitars.
I don't want to speak out of turn. I actually almost got into guitar repairs and things of that nature because some guy was mentoring me, but it got way too esoteric. I was like, I like guitars, but not this much. I don't want to spend all day fixing them and dealing with guitarists. Guitarists are very annoying, actually.
Oh, it was his mom's. Oh, that's lovely. Well, that's something to have gratitude for.
Yeah, that's nice.
Right.
Yeah. I'm actually very annoyed. My dad sold the family piano. So it's like, I scolded him for a couple of years on that. It's like, why did you sell the family piano? He's like, no one was playing it. It's like, well, every time I came home, I played it. I was grateful for it being there.
Oh, here's a good one. Nathaniel,
thank you,
I'm grateful
Nathaniel.
for finding this smaller but more engaging channel. Oh, I'm glad you feel that way. Through bigger but somewhat dead-end channels. Yeah, well, The one criticism that I take very seriously and am not very good at solving is keeping things a little more pragmatic. Not that I'm not say more pragmatic than say Vervaeke or something, but we gotta dial up the pragmatism a little bit higher here too, I think. And yeah, part of it, and I like that we did go into it, like how do you practice gratitude? And Jesse went through a few ways, I went through a few ways, right? And just the idea of waking up in the morning and being grateful that hey, you're awake. That's not bad. And then before you go to bed, being grateful for the day that you had and that it's over.
Well, yeah, the whole Is it dropping out? It's dropping out again. Oh, damn it. You know what? I'm still thankful for the stream. It's kind of working. What I was going to bring up is the American Thanksgiving, right? It's not just one day. That's just the ceremony of it.
That's the
right?
busiest
just
travel
Easter
day of the year. Is the day before Thanksgiving in America. The busiest travel day in the year. So people get with their families to be grateful. Right. It's a gratitude ceremony or ritual. Yeah. I don't think you're cutting out, Jesse. I think your lag is like 2 seconds or 3 seconds. It's really high. You just can't catch a break with your internet. The wallabies are not treating your packets well.
I'm gonna have to upgrade. It's so annoying.
Upgrade away, sir. Upgrade away. Get better Aussie net.
Well, you know what I can tell you about. I read this book on a recommendation from a friend, you could say, called Childhood End by Arthur C. Clarke. And man, if you want to know about subversive sci-fi, there's that book. You can just look up the premise in Wikipedia. But yeah, that book has a high degree of resentfulness baked right into its premise. So
what's it called?
Essentially, imagine Independence Day, Childhood's End. You actually can see all its ideas in other sci-fi works deconstructed. But imagine if there was no alien battle at the end of Independence Day, but the aliens just stuck around and started to change society. Oh, and by the way, the aliens actually look like demons once they reveal themselves. And by the way, you will love them. Once you get to know them, you'll love them. Even though they're aliens and demons, you'll love them. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these people, when you start looking
actually.
A lot of these people, when you start looking at like the modern philosophers and some of the modern authors, they're just taking their trauma, projecting it on the world, and solving it there. Like that's the whole trick. It's nothing else more. There's nothing more.
Wow. Yeah.
More to it. Yeah. Manuel and I have been noticing that's modern philosophy. All the modern philosophers, like you look at somebody like Kierkegaard. It's so funny. PVK does this thing on Kierkegaard and reads the introduction to one of his biographies or something, and basically he's the Luther of Lutheranism. That's his whole shtick. You don't need to know anything else about him. You know everything about him just from that, right? Or you look at Nietzsche. Oh, the death of God. It's like, well, that happened for him. And so he's projecting it on the world and trying to solve it there so he can resolve his own internal thing. All these guys, it's all the same story every time. And it's Arthur C. Clarke, right? A lot of these things are sort of the same thing. And we got a question. Do both of you have an equivalent space to the church, Sangha, temple, community, etc.? You don't need to be specific, but how much community practice sphere is to you both? Yeah, look, I mean, I have the Discord server. And, we used to do the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server, and we ran the meditation there for like just over 3 years, actually, until our moderation skills were taken away from us, caused quite a bit of dust up. They no longer have people there in numbers, and they lost their John Vervaeke Q&As as a result. But, you make a decision as a Discord owner, and have consequences. So, Yeah, causing a big dust up was no good. Now I just have my Mark of Wisdom Discord server, and hopefully at some point we'll get the website up properly. That's my communal space engagement right now. There are other things I'm grateful for, like we do this entrepreneur meeting every Wednesdays in Columbia, South Carolina. That's nice, right? So I often just go outside and savor my property, because I have 12 beautiful acres, and I've got a dam and a pond, and there's all kinds of wildlife and everything else. I don't have to do much, really. It's kind of wonderful.
Turtles.
How about you, Jesse?
Although I actually, I'm actually going to do it better. I've some of that's circumstantial, some of that's relational. Christina works when I'm not here, and I work when she's not here, and that's due to we're building a future, right? We're actually building a house, and so we're a small amount of pain right now for a great amount of reward, because when we move across states, we'll be with my family and extended send people from there. Even though I'm not looking forward to living in that state, because I actually vowed never to go back. Nevertheless, watch what you vow not to do, because sometimes life has other plans. I was like, I never want to go back to that state. It's a backward city, and it's not that well built, and people think they're more cultured than they actually are, and etc. Nevertheless, that's where my family is, and that's where if we God willing do manage to have a child, then at least we'll have a good foundation there. Met a bunch of different things. I used to be part of a church, obviously, because I was kind of a little bit Christianese with my monologue. But that all fell apart for different reasons. COVID kind of destroyed that. And I still keep up to date with a lot of my former friends or still friends. It's tough though when seasons of life change, and then participation with them also has to change. Especially once kids gets involved, or different career paths, or different political beliefs, sad to say, sometimes come out, or different aesthetic beliefs come out.
Right.
You got to navigate that. You got to navigate that space, and trying to do it humility. Or I think I've just restored the relationship with one of my good friends, but I had to call him out on a bunch of bullshit right after a Peterson gig, and he went off and started a full-time relationship with this gal for about 3 months, which is why I didn't hear from him. And then he came back to me once it all broke up, and even then I poked holes. I was like, well, she became your idol. Like, right. She's not meant to do that.
Right. Well, and that's the modern story right now, or I should say recent story, is the interaction with the destruction of sacred spaces where you could be grateful. And for many people, it is church. Like I said, we had a Sangha going as a result of the Vervaeke meditation series, that effectively I built. And Vervaeke would acknowledge that, I think, pretty easy. You acknowledge it in the streams. You can listen to them. If you can find the damn streams, they're hard to find. I don't know if they're still not on his channel. They were taken off at one point, but you can hear him. Talk about that. So my Sangha was sort of taken away. But yeah, I mean, you shouldn't only practice gratitude alone, certainly. But it's important to practice it even if it's only alone, and that's part of the this problem. Like there's something deeply to individualism. But also it's insufficient. And so, you have to have these spaces you can go to get more contrast, to be grateful. And I've talked about this before, but I'll raise it again because it's such a good and interesting story. Vervaeke did a talk with this guy, Jacob Kishir, and he told the same story on the Awakening from Meaning Crisis Discord YouTube channel, where basically he was trapped during COVID in Athens, Greece. And if anybody would like me to be trapped in Athens, Greece, and can make that happen, let me know. I'm all in. Yeah, I can imagine weird wording. And he had done psychedelics in the past. Young kid too, right? He had done psychedelics in the past, and whatever. He had his profound experiences, but nothing transformative. And then he goes into a Greek Orthodox church in Athens, Greece, of all the places, and he sees everything exemplified, and he understands, there's symbols everywhere, and they're bright and shiny. Nothing happens. He leaves the church, and then he sees those patterns in the city, in the world. Then he has the experience. It's like, whoa. And it is, so it's not like, oh, you're only supposed to have your profound experiences in the sacred space. That's not how that works. The sacred space affords you the ability to have those experiences anywhere because it's part of the contrast. And that's why I actually think the symbolism is really important, and that the lack of symbolism is not good. It's just not good. I do also want to address Joey's.
Yeah.
Friday night is antisocial behavior.
Really?
That is true.
Really? Okay, let's think about this. Okay, if we do it on a Saturday night, technically Saturday night is a holy night to some people. We do it on a Sunday night, technically Sunday is a holy day or holy night to some people. So when would you like us to do this? Monday night? Is that practical? Is that possible?
It's the stream for the Misfit toys on Misfit Island for sure. I don't go out on
We're all
Friday night,
Muppets.
so. Well, yeah. See, and here you go. Joey's got judgment. Yes, because I'm missing out because I'm going out to be social. Monday night would be great. Well, maybe we'll do Monday night streams as well. That would be interesting. Yeah,
It'd be Tuesday night. It'd be Tuesday night for me.
Right. It'd be Tuesday morning for you.
Oh yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, my night, your mornings. Right. Well, I've toyed with doing other streams in different days or whatever, but people have not expressed enough interest in that yet for me to consider what other times and days would be good. But I'd be open to doing a Monday night stream or something. That'd be interesting. But part of my problem now is I'm super busy trying to do 5,000. Everything just came at me at once. And then I had to do 2 vacations in a row, 2 weekends in a row. So that was no good. Joey, giving you a hard time, said with love. We'll catch up with you guys later. Sure, Joey. I understand the spirit, and I'm grateful that you engaged it all.
Dropped in. Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that is part of it is being grateful for the things you have and the constraints, right? Because there are constraints. Like I can only get Jesse here at this time period. Right, and
at the moment, yeah,
and I lose Manuel and Adam. It's like
trade-offs.
That's why Manuel and I did a video recently, a live stream recently, and that went pretty well. That one didn't get as many. Nothing ever gets as many views as we want, but it got quite a few views. And I thought it was a really good. I thought it was a good topic, right? Because what we were talking about was domicide, right? Why people feel lonely, and Manuel's good to do that with because he knows more about domicide than most people. Unfortunately, talk about embodied, poor guy.
Yeah, that's tough. But we're we're in the age of domicide, that's for sure. That's I think what people should appreciate here is that we are building a back catalogue of great topics to review in the past, and Mark's actually, by the way, guys, I say this every now and then, Mark's early videos are really good. Like really, really good. I'll do the quiet the voice thing to get your attention.
There you go. Do the enchantment, force people to pay attention. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am trying to build something. I think the point of Chino, for example, search for a spiritual home. Yes, if you want to stop the domicide, you're not going to do it in a materialist way.
Yep.
Right. And not that you can't use materialism to stop the domicide. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. And here we go. Oh, Sally
okay,
Jo's
here
gonna
we
be so
go.
happy.
All right, we'll
Nathaniel,
change. We'll cultural lens. Here we go.
Sally Joe is going to be very happy to hear that you think Batman and Superman is fantastic. And I'm grateful. I mean, that was another one of those videos that I was listening to Jesse in particular, but some other critiques and trying to craft much better videos. And Batman versus Superman was a video where I used some of the framing from my Fourth Estate video, which Jesse told me was one of my best, and tried to, incorporate that into another video. And that was the video that I chose.
It's top 5. That video is top 5.
Yeah. I really liked it.
The Peterson videos are actually very excellent too. They come from very passionate.
I want to do another one. I'm tempted to do one more.
Do it.
I could do one more. Well, and now I've got Vanderklay on the Q&A today. Oh my God. I was like, ooh, is this me or is this Vanderklay talking? Like, these are my sentences for sure. Like whole sentences. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Colonization complete. My work is done here, I'm like, this is great. Well, I commented on one of his videos, right? He commented back and said, excellent, thanks. And I was like, oh, well, okay. I was like, all right, now he's getting it. This is good. It was a meaty comment, but it's a shorter one. Like some of these comments that I do are like pages. Sometimes I have to do 2 to get all this stuff because I take notes. I listen to these videos, I take notes, and then I'm basically just pasting my notes. Sometimes I go in and smart enough and thoughtful enough to go in and edit them to give a little more context. But usually I'm just no timestamps, no nothing. I'm just brain dumping, just to push in this direction or point out that thing, right? Because some of Vanderklay's stuff is so brilliant, it just needs to be shouted to the world. He doesn't focus on that. He focuses on the distributed cognition, where he's basically using his audience. So yeah. Oh, here we go. Nathaniel, the content from my youth I'm rewatching is X-Men, so the comic stuff just works for me. I think PBK should bump that one. Look, write him an email or send him a message in Twitter, better yet, and tell him that. Say, look, I really like this video. I think you should do a commentary on it. If he did a commentary on one of my videos, my 503 subscribers or so that I have right now, I'm down to 502. Damn, I lost one today probably. But maybe I can get over 1,000, like Grim Grits, and then that would be huge for the algorithm. I mean, the monetization in YouTube is terrible, but the algorithm is not. So I'll take the algorithm stuff. Yeah, let him know. That's all I can say. He did see my story and narrative archetype video, and he really liked that one. So, there we go. Nathaniel, gratitude practice for the day. I will do that. Well, thank you.
Excellent.
Mission accomplished.
Excellent.
The whole
That's it.
Validated right there. Right.
What did you think of? Go for it.
I like that Nathaniel brought up, which we missed, obviously. What's your sacred space for gratitude, effectively? Yeah, that was good. That was a good fill-in, Nathaniel. So I'm grateful that you brought that up because we totally missed that one. That was a good catch.
I kind of touched on it, but not to the level that I should in some aspects. But I'm reading off like bullet point notes that I've condensed down, and some of it's Manuel, some of it's you, some of it's me.
I can tell all the Manuel stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for his input, particularly about you can't be that for which you judge or suspicious of. You can't be grateful for. That was one of his big things. I was like, yeah, I need the hermeneutics of suspicion.
Manuel is the master at the understanding of and articulation of identification against. He understands that better than anyone I've ever met, including me, for sure. He has that dialed in for some reason. And it's not the only thing he has dialed in by any means, but like he has that so dialed in. He can just talk about that at any time. He can recognize it in places that I don't even see it. It's fantastic. He's really, really good with that. And so, I mean, it's good to be grateful for the opportunity for the distributed cognition amongst the Muppet crew, right? And practicing, in a lot of ways, you got to be very grateful for Paul VanderKlay because he exemplified the distributed cognition, the consciousness congress that he called it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what a lot of this stuff stems from, especially with the live streams.
Yeah, well, without VanderKlay, we wouldn't have hooked up and have this relationship there. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Same thing with me.
And him doing his early live streams and me being on his, like I'm on all his early live streams, led me to be able to do this because, it's still a set of skills. Like,
it's a practice.
Natural or whatever. No,
You've got to practice this.
It's all practice.
The fluency too the fluency is such a hard thing to master.
Yeah.
Particularly with the cadences and the way you present and the way you read too and how you break all that up.
I can't wait for you to watch this and then see the difference between the end of the monologue that you did and the beginning. Because that's going to be very exciting.
Oh no! Please. I will. Okay, I'll do that. Fine, I'll do that.
You have to do that. You have to, because that's how you learn. You watch yourself and you go, "Oh, there's a difference between the end and the beginning," and the difference is pretty striking. Actually, it's funny. There's a couple differences too. Yeah, you'll see. You'll sense it right away, and you'll.
Well, I've started to make training videos at work too, so that'll help.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's going well. So they're like,
awesome.
one of my documents is up to like 200 pages, which is just ridiculous.
That's insane.
Yeah. Well, it's all screenshots and how to do things and where to click and all that.
No,
but they don't have any of that. And they're like, oh, don't write policy, don't write procedure. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Because it's not written anywhere. What's written in different bits of things, and it just needs to be on one place.
Well, you lose consistency, right? Without policy and procedure, you lose consistency. And now without consistency, it's harder to cooperate. It's just harder at every level too.
I should be clear. I'm not writing policy. I'm just writing down collecting together what the different bits are. So
you're not determining policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
you're just writing it down. But without it, you can't cooperate. So anywhere you have a business or a nonprofit or a charity, you have procedures and policies. Are they written down? Because if they're not, it's harder for new people, and it's sometimes harder for people in the system because they don't. What are we doing? So and you need to be grateful for that structure.
Oh yeah. Well, we went to Canberra a couple of weeks ago, and that was a strange thing because I'm not sure if you know about Canberra, but it's a design city. They literally at the end of World War II, they're like, we need to design a city essentially. So they just literally picked, okay, between the two big cities, we're just going to start designing this. And they had a whole utopian sort of socialist, semi-socialist thing behind it, which is fine. Like, sure, it led to one of the more beautiful cities we have in this country, because it's so well planned out. There's so much space between the buildings. Like they literally, there's a couple documentaries on it, and they reference like Washington and Paris and all those Republican places where like the glory of the buildings is actually not the building; it's the space between the buildings.
Right.
And so it's a bit strange too because it's all modernized and they've got a lot of materials up on the wall, and like the old Parliament House would be far much better if they didn't have. You just go to the buildings, and they recreated some of the rooms and things, but a lot of it's too museum-like. Now it's a little bit you get this dissonance. But if you go further to the back of the building, where it's just recreated rooms and things, you're like, oh, yeah, some decisions were made in this room. This is. Or you get to go to the old Senate floor where the Queen came, and that's like, oh, you're like, yeah, this used to be a place of great importance and prestige, and now it's a little bit alien to be here. So, nevertheless, you can appreciate that which has gone before you to try and pave the way.
Right.
Yeah, and they've also got a great lookout too. We can look up, and it's all So one of the best things that they did, which they designed it so it's one whole pathway, so you can see the old war museums and different libraries, and then there's the town that kind of echoes out like this, and then there's a river and a bridge, and then it's like the four main big building like the Treasury, the Art Gallery,
Mm.
the other building I'm forgetting the name of, and then the first Parliament House, and then they built the new Parliament House right after that. So you get this whole like telos kind of pointing into the new
Right.
Parliament House. Quite beautiful,
Right.
some aspects. So yeah,
There's a lot of those, right? Brazil did the same thing. They did design city, utopic city, right?
Mhm.
And what they do is they look at the good cities, right? And they try to emulate them, and they always destroy everything. It's like all of these attempts that have ever been, and there's been a lot of them too. Like you start looking at the history of that sort of thing, everyone's tried it, and it always fails. It's spectacular. Like Versailles was an attempt to do that, right? Like back in the day. People don't realize Versailles. Look, I mean, apparently, from all the pictures I've seen, is absolutely gorgeous, and I'd love to go someday. But by any measure, it was a complete failure. Complete failure. In many ways, that's the French Revolution.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah,
and then what happened?
The Treaty of Versailles
destroys the rest of the world. The Treaty of Versailles destroys the rest of the world.
Oh, it's so hectic, man. It's so hectic. Is Venice a design city?
I don't know. Well,
but do they build upon?
But not all design cities are these utopic copies.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Like all cities have an element of design. Like New York City's a grid. Like if you can't get around New York City, you're dumb because it's literally a grid. It's probably the worst part of it. In fact, the most interesting parts of the city aren't part of the grid.
The like bars.
Broadway is not part of the grid, guys. Like that whole area, this interesting squares and stuff are not part of the grid. Times Square is not part of the grid. There's a cutoff in the grid. It's actually the place where the grid is sliced. It's the split up of the grid.
It gives it significance. Yeah.
You don't really realize it's in those little imperfect spaces where all the magic happens. Right? That's where the miracles manifest, not in the regularity. And the funny part is it's so obvious everywhere. I'm like, how do you not know this?
Trade-offs.
They want control, and they think they can have it.
Well,
science and materialism, and it's like
naturalism. Hey. My favorite thing is naturalism. Now I'm bashing naturalism any chance I can get. Well, you don't get to naturalism without the Enlightenment project, where everything could just kind of be naturalized out, sort of science and facts. Okay, okay.
I don't think so. I think the naturalism was. I mean, because extreme naturalism is Dionysus. That's naturalism.
Yeah, that's the 80s.
Yeah, but you had that way before the 80s. You had that before the.
I know. You had the 60s Bohemians. Yeah, I know. And then before that, you had the beat poets and all that sort of stuff.
And before that,
you had Berlin, the Berlin Bohemians, and then before that, you got the French.
All paganism.
Yeah.
All paganism.
Well, paganism is the default, right? Isn't it?
Well, it's nature. Its nature is good, right? And it's like, ooh, that's not. That its being is good. Nature is good is almost the same as emergence is good.
Wow. Okay.
Very close.
How do you pass that up though?
In what respect? I mean,
because there is a goodness to nature. Well, there is a wonder in nature.
No, there is the potential for goodness in nature.
Right.
That's different.
Okay.
But nature has a snake.
Yes. That's okay. Okay.
And therefore the goodness isn't automatic because nature. It's not nature and therefore goodness. In the same way, it's not emergence and therefore goodness. Right? In the same way that it is being and therefore goodness.
Yeah, I agree. Actually.
Right. So
still trying to figure. There's a lot of things to figure out with that one. The nature is good it leads to all sorts of strange places.
Well, nature is the manifest emergence. But emergence is not good.
Okay.
That's right?
Right.
Nature is a manifest of emergence that is following what we call natural law, right? Which
Yeah.
may be the same as law of God or something.
Mm.
Doesn't really matter for our purposes, we'll say, right? And then and that's an and therefore, right? That's just the observable
Yeah.
world. Again, we should be grateful that we were created at a time and in a place, and that's the description of that is called nature. That is the word for that.
Right. It's one of these words. It's a big container. It's too big to use in some sense because it can contain all these different ideals.
Right.
If you-
Nature
one way,
is the container because it contains it is the constraints. And so constraints are that's part of the container, right? And so that's the big container for the materialists. Like material constraint. And this is why Vervaeke says I'm not a physicalist reductionist. It's like, well, fair enough, but you're still a materialist. And materialism is just thinking that material is primary and not
Yeah.
ethereal, which is clearly primary, by the way, in case,
Yeah.
spoiler alert.
That we agree. That we agree on. Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot. It's a lot to think there. It's a lot to contemplate. Because when people say nature, you have to listen to the context around what they're saying there. What are they hinting at? Are they saying it in the scientific frame? Are they saying it in the romantic frame? Are they saying it in a pagan frame? Are they saying it in a materialist frame? They're saying it in a stoic frame, perhaps too.
Right. Well, and that's you're right. You're right. That's
Yeah.
the issue is they use nature to mean a lot of different things effectively, right? Under a lot of different definitions and in a lot of different frames. And they're not talking about the same concept because what most materialists want when they're talking about nature is an objective material reality to orient towards.
Yeah.
And they don't know that. Fair enough. But that's the way they talk. If you listen to Vervaeke or even Peterson, that's the way they talk. Peterson's very much, he doesn't, in my mind, he doesn't actually talk about constraint correctly. But he's very much talking about constraint and using nature as a constraining agent.
Yes. So what do we do with the different conversations around natural law? How do you navigate through that?
Well, it's easy. Like I always say, look, there has to be a difference between natural law and the law of man.
Yeah.
Because we get those two confused all the time. We just use the word law. It's like, well, but natural law and law of man is very fungible. We create it and destroy it. Law of nature is not quite so fungible, right? It's I like this new term, unconditional. It's not conditional upon us. Right.
Yes.
So gravity works whether you're there to see it or not. Right. The heat of the fire remains constant. When you move away from it, your experience of it changes. But that heat is unconditional.
Conditions, constraints, priorities, participation.
The conditionality is in the agency, in the free will. It's like, there's free will, and that's where the condition. Yes. Now you can modify the conditions within the constraints. Those constraints are nature, and then all of a sudden you have a very simple model, in my opinion, a very simple model that basically, right? Like, there's more pieces to my world model, we'll say, that explains the world, but if you want to explain nature, materialism, and the difference between, say, natural law and the law of man, and you could add the law of God, you could say law of God and law of nature are the same. It doesn't matter at that point. I think the model accommodates both systems just fine. It doesn't change anything because you're just adding a component within the same basic framework, right? Now you have a simple way of understanding nature. It's like, okay, so nature is that neutral space where good and bad, good and evil, both, because they're different, can exist. Both axes, both the horizontal and the vertical, can exist.
Yeah. In some ways you need to preserve in your mind, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this correctly, you need to remember the container of neutral space, right? Right, to correct lensing or correct orientation, right, has all shades of the contrast. When you reduce that contrast down to a few shades, it's very hard to see things in their proper state,
Or
because
to a
you're just
binary,
gonna to a binary,
which is what people are doing, right? They're like,
Yeah.
well, let's find the Hegelian dialectic, literally.
Yeah.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? But there is no synthesis. That's garbage, right? He's just saying there's a thing and there's the opposite of the thing, which I've already said, no, that's cannot be true. Not that things don't have things that oppose them, but they don't have exact opposites. The world is not symmetrical. Everything does not have matter doesn't have corresponding antimatter. How can you say that, Mark? Because we're here. This is actually a big problem in physics that nobody's been able to solve.
That's
Morons, basically. I solved it in 2 seconds. There's obviously just more matter than antimatter. Problem solved. There's an asymmetry built into the universe automatically. That's how we're here. It's obvious, right? It's like the sun is not toxic to us. Duh. If it was, we couldn't be here. It's the same sort of banal, almost, functionally retarded mistake that people are making. There's an asymmetry, and that means that opposites is not the world we live in, and so the Hegelian dialectic is bankrupt from the start because there isn't an antithesis. It doesn't exist, right? Which again doesn't mean things don't have overlapping opposition. They do, but they're not opposites. Those are different statements, and adding that nuance is actually really important because it allows you to understand the difference between natural law and the law of man. They're not in conflict.
Yeah.
There is some overlap.
Well, if you're trying to rationalize, right, and pass out, right, if you're beginning from I need to rationalize, you're going to have no neutral space or no other framing for the irrational, which is perhaps the thing that you should actually protect. Is no, things sometimes just don't have an explanation, or some things we'll never get to the bottom of.
That's the closed world.
Yeah.
You want to know how people are stuck? How they're stuck in a meaning crisis? They have a closed world. And in that closed world, it has to be very simple. And one of the arguments I got into on the Break the Rules live stream chat there was these guys were saying, we need to pass a law to do this. And I'm like, guys, you break laws all the time. You don't even know the laws. You literally don't know what laws you live in the U.S. and probably everywhere else, but definitely the U.S. You don't even know the laws you're breaking right now. You have no idea. How is that helpful? If somebody passes, like there's these little signs and they have numbers on them and they say something like speed limit. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think I have a convertible BMW that's basically a freaking race car? I mean, I didn't intend to buy a race car, but I did because it was Car and Driver, man. Car and Driver said that was the best car for the money in that price range. I just bought it. That's just how I roll sometimes when I'm not poor, and I don't regret any of it. The car's way too fast. I should not be driving a car that can go this fast. There's no question about it. I'm already irresponsible enough. I don't need any help, right? I don't pay attention to those signs. They don't stop me from doing anything. That law about how fast and what's the penalty, and because I did get a ticket recently, and my motor's like, oh, I'm sorry you got a ticket. You shouldn't have driven. And I was like, whatever, dude. This is a tax for having a fancy car. That's what this is, and it's just a tax. Whatever. I'll just pay the damn tax. I bought the damn car. It's not that hard, right? And so I pay the tax for having the fast car.
Pragmatic. It's so pragmatic.
It is what it is, right?
It is good. Yeah.
I broke the law. It has a penalty. It's not a penalty I care about that much, although, yeah, I mean, even a small ticket is a big deal right now, right? But it's whatever. I mean, it is what it is, right? And so is that really an effective law? I mean, it is, but you don't know why. It's not because of the consequence and the penalty. It's because of the pointing. Oh, here's a speed we can agree on. Even if we don't actually agree, the availability of having a speed limit is really important because it causes, and we know this actually, this is funny. We actually know this from experiments. These experiments have actually been done. If you put a sign, even if it's 100 miles an hour, people will travel in packs at a similar speed, and that reduces accidents. And insurance companies can tell you this all day long. The thing that causes accidents is not the speed you're going or not going. It's the difference in speed on the same road. That's what causes accidents. You know what else causes accidents? Nothing. That is the factor for accidents. Right? Because even if people aren't paying attention, they're easy to avoid if they're doing the same speed as you. Because the minute they come out of that speed, you know right away to avoid them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, how many times have people jaywalk too? I had someone last night almost jaywalked in front of my car. I cursed. It's just, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, like especially when like you go maybe 100 meters up the road. There's a traffic light. Just cross there. What's the utility of jaywalking here? Just because you can save a little bit of time. It's like, but you could.
Jaywalking in Boston, in particular, is a sport. But the Americans are terrible.
They do call it Frogger for a reason, don't they?
Imagine living in this world, especially in the U.S., and thinking that passing a law was going to have some material effect on behavior in the way that you intend. It's like you're not paying attention to how things are happening. I told them all, go to a court just for the day, maybe half a day, watch what happens. Go ahead. And then you tell me how effective laws are. And the fact of the matter is, in the U.S., it's all recidivism, right? Most people are there at court because they've been there before. Most criminals are breaking the same laws over and over again. It just is what it is. And so how effective are laws? I would say, they're not effective in the way that you expect at all, but having things like speed limit signs, which are set by laws somehow, is effective, but you don't understand why. It's not the law aspect, right? But imagine not seeing that. And we're
what's the norms?
See that.
It's the norms of immediacy, and hypothetically, it's a protection or a limitation or sentimentality that the community is meant to hold up.
You have to point at something. It's the same argument with gratitude. Like the reason why you have gratitude is because you're pointing up at something, right? And that gives you contrast to see the rest of the world. And because you're pointing up and away from the material, you get orientation. And then once you can orient, you gain the skills of orientation. And now you take those back, you exact them, to use Vervaeke terminology, back into the world, and everything in your life improves. I don't know what to tell you. That's why you need the gratitude. All right, Jesse, I'm pretty tired. We've been doing almost 3 hours. What do you think?
I know. I think this is a
closing comment or two.
Closing comment. Virtue, appreciation, character, contrast, discernment, integrity. These are moments to cultivate the spirit of gratitude.
Nice. Have a sacred space, right, where you can practice gratitude, and that will not only stave off some of the materialism, but it will also give you the ability to compare and contrast, and therefore orient with respect to virtues and values and the transcendentals. Because if you're busy all the time, you cannot appreciate virtues and values. You cannot engage with the transcendentals. You have to take that time out and dedicate it in worship, in practice, right, to gratitude. And hopefully you do it in the morning and in the evening. Highly recommended. So thank you, everybody. If you've got ideas for topics, put them in the comments, and we'll try to get to them. If you've got ideas for different streaming times, because Joey has to be a social butterfly at the normal time with the normal people, which I very much disagree with. This normalcy thing is totally overrated. Let me know. I can't guarantee anything, but and any topics for any navigating patterns videos, obviously. And I'm always grateful that A, anybody watches, and B, for whatever feedback we get. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.